All right. Well, let's see what happens. Unplanned, but here I am. So what the hell, right? What do we got to lose? Plus, you guys know me. I don't do the sleeping thing. So, oh man, Ukatoa. What an honor to have Ukatoa here in the chat. But yeah, I don't know. It's a Friday night. Had a pretty good evening. Work day was kind of shitty, and obviously you guys know my feeling on the things that have come out today. And yeah, I was gonna work on some videos. I just didn't feel like doing it, so here I am doing a live stream. I'm very awake, so there's no issues there. Yeah, we're good. I got I don't know. I figure I do this for about an hour, hang out, chat with you guys, see what happens. Answer questions. Or just, bullshit about whatever. So I want the new book to be Dragonlance. I don't think it's going to be Dragonlance. Because I think it's going to be... a lot of people are suggesting like a Draconomicon or something like that. And that would be a surprise move and a big win, in my opinion. James Wyatt apparently was going to be... I guess he was one of the original creators of the Draconomicon, or at least one version of it, so that's cool. And we've had the dragon subclasses, and we've had the Dragonborn and Kobold. So folks are leaning towards that. I don't want to get my hopes up, but that would be a big win, in my opinion. And that also would be an opportunity to introduce harvesting and crafting rules into 5e. Not saying that WotC's going to do it. That's what I would do. My sleep schedule, it's more of a guideline, really. It's kind of freestyle at the moment, not so much scheduled. Yeah, the books, I already talked to my wife this morning. I told her, I was like, yeah, I went through the whole fiasco of announcements. And she's like, well, I guess I'll see you at Christmas, because I'm going to be so busy doing videos from September to November. Thank you, Rock Williams. Yeah, the room is coming along. It's pretty much done. I gotta move this printer somewhere, and I've got like these posters, and I gotta hang up the shield, and I got some stuff to hang up on the walls and whatnot. But, there's all of this space that you guys see right here. I want to put stuff here, and then, these I just have like random like pictures and shit. I gotta clean that all up and put some more stuff over there. Yeah, no, it's 2:50 a.m. Alex Easterly, so probably 3 a.m. Yeah. What do I think about the subclass options? I think it's fine. I'm not as broken up about the subclasses being class, going across classes like a lot of people are. I think it just needs to be done for marshals too. Half-Life 3? Yeah, maybe. Still down about Dragonlance? Yeah, it's coming. I'm positive it's coming. It's either going to be, if it's not this year, it'll probably be one of the first books next year. Farming and Crafting, Farmer's Handbook coming in October. Yeah, doubtful. Just picked up Van Richten's. Have you done any games in the Domains of Dread? I have not. I don't get to run games too often, mostly because I'm busy making videos. He's talked about Spelljammer, and then we've seen like the GIF and Volos. Next year or the year after will be Spelljammer, in my opinion. Harvesting rules would be great. Yeah, is Dragonlance worth looking into? I don't know. I'm not a Dragonlance tryhard like a lot of folks are. I am gonna start listening to Dragons of Autumn Twilight. That's like the first trilogy, or so I'm told. People told me to check that one out. I'm gonna listen to it or read it, and then we'll see what happens. I kind of want another magic settering. Spruce, like Theros. Yeah, Ikoria is the one I hear everybody would like to see too. What's my favorite homebrew weapon that I've created? I assume you mean not necessarily like a unique weapon, just like a cool like in the existing scope of weapons that exist. I had an axe a great axe that one of my players has. That's pretty cool. I had probably the one that I think everyone liked the most was I made a sword out of bone called Bloodthirst in my old campaign, and it had like a thing where if you crit with it, it would give you like temporary hit points, and it like the pommel had like a red ruby, and it would glow and beat like a heart if you scored a critical hit. That seemed to go over really well. What new book are you more excited for and why? I'm probably most excited for the third book that we don't know what it is, because I'm hopeful that it's something I want more than the other two. What's a good DM screen to get? Well, I don't know about the dungeon kit, right? We don't know. That's new. So I'm excited for that. I like the Jetpack 7 Legendary Dragons DM screen as far as content goes. The Wilderness Kit one is good too, if you're doing outdoor stuff. I love your content and look forward to future content. I started playing D&D at the pandemic. Oh, well, I'm glad I could be a part of it. A lot of people have joined since the pandemic. Around 60,000+ of all of you have joined since the start of the pandemic, so thank you for all of that. It's a small silver lining in the grand scheme of how shitty the world has been. How long do you think a 6th edition book will come out? Just out of curiosity, 2 to 6 years. That's I don't have it from a specific person from Wizards of the Coast, but I've heard it from multiple resources that are relatively close to Wizards of the Coast that a 6th edition is coming in the next 2 to 6 years. My gut has always told me the 50th anniversary of 5e, or sorry, the 50th anniversary of D&D, which I think also coincides with the 10th anniversary of 5e, is a good point to release a 6th edition. Now, Jeremy Crawford has said in the past that if they ever made a 6th edition, it would be backwards compatible with 5e. Don't know if that's going to be the case. Don't know how different it's going to be. But that's what I got for you. I have heard some other interesting rumors about it as well, which are a little disheartening. Have I played Pathfinder 2e? No, I have not. If so, what did you play? No, I have not played Pathfinder. I haven't played any Pathfinder, actually. I might try to do something at Gen Con this year, since actually, no, Paizo pulled out a Gen Con, I think. So, I don't know. Thinking about Survivors and House of Lament, do you think that they upscaled that to be used for level 1 to 3? Yeah, because it'll be something that'll apply or be applicable to more players. Not everybody's going to want to do the Survivors, but anybody can play a level 1 to 3 character, so I think that's why they scaled it up. What's your favorite way to handle travel in games? I don't have a good way. That's why I'm always looking and accepting all these things from folks who are doing stuff on Kickstarter to look into it, because I haven't landed on a good method for travel yet. I think that given James White is working on the final book, it's going to line up with the Magic the Gathering setting, be Innistrad. I think it's too close to do 2 Magics back to back, in my opinion. They could, but I think that you'd piss off your D&D fans more than you'd please your Magic fans. Do I listen to any actual play podcasts? No, I do not. I just don't have time, guys. I really don't. I don't know. I'll throw this out there. I don't know if anybody's interested in something like this. I have thought about doing like a day in the life of video, like what a typical day for me is like, just to kind of give everybody an idea of what I do on a regular weekday, Monday through Friday. Saturdays and Sundays are a little bit different, right? Because it's the weekend. But yeah, I don't have time. I'm usually busy working, and like, I don't know, I don't like to listen to like podcasts while I work. I usually just focus on my work. Sometimes I do audiobooks. But I don't know. I don't enjoy D&D shows that much where the folks aren't, I know this is probably going to sound bad, but like, I like it when people understand D&D and like know the rules enough. Like nothing, it makes me physically cringe when someone like messes up a very like fundamental rule, especially if it's in a game I know that's been running for a long time, or I don't know. Like my friends the friends I stream with every Tuesday on Twitch, where we play our games, they are big into actual play podcasts and stuff, and they always are talking about like Dungeons and Daddies as a show that they like to watch. But they all flat out tell me, like, Ted, you would hate it because they're horrible at playing D&D. They tell okay stories, but they suck at D&D. Have I heard about Above Virtual Tabletop? I have heard about Above Virtual Tabletop. I think, yeah, I don't know if they reached out to me at a point. They might have. I do recall Above Virtual Tabletop. Do you think Hasbro may have negatively influenced the recent incoming releases in some capacity? I don't think so. I don't think Hasbro would have put Wizards of the Coast in charge of a literal, like, third of the company if they had negative things to do with it. Like, I mean, it's possible, right? It's big corporate world, so you never know. Do I think there will be a 5.5e? Not from Wizards of the Coast. Do I think we will get a 6e or 5.5? It's going to be, like I said, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I've heard from sources, multiple sources independent of one another, and those other sources, like other peers of mine, have also confirmed that the rumor is 2 to 6 years for 5e, or for 6e. The Celestial Resilience and Familiar interact. Find Familiar interact. Celestial Resilience is the Azimar thing that they get resistance to radiant and necrotic damage, I think. I'm not sure exactly what that is off the top of my head. Okay, let's scroll down. I'm missing some stuff. Also, I think I saw a super chat, so I'll take a look at that in just a sec here. So thank you for the super chat. There it is. Am I a fan of Kinzer & Co. games? I don't know them, so I can't answer that. So I might be, but I'm just not sure. Do you think parents should teach their kids D&D if they want to? I don't think it's a net. Like, if your kids don't like games, like, or they're not, like, if they're more focused on other things, I don't think it's a bad idea to teach your kids D&D, but I don't think you should try to. It's the same thing. It's like a weird flip. Like, if your kids don't like sports, don't force them to play sports. Like, maybe if they want to try out, local, like, league soccer, baseball, or whatever, and you want to see if they like it, and then they don't like it, okay, not a big deal. Same thing with D&D. Like, if you want to be like, hey, this is a fun thing. Like, for me, it's a huge part of my life, obviously. And my kids love seeing all the minis and stuff like that, so they're all about that. Will they ultimately like D&D when I teach it to them and show them how to play? Maybe. And if they do, great. If they don't, that's just an aspect of my life, and they have their own hobbies. That's cool. While I like the new UA, I have a concern. Doesn't it seem like the design of the new UA is very different? Yes, it is, but they're trying to. I think what they're doing ultimately, if a 6e is indeed coming, like I do believe it is, I think they're workshopping concepts at the end here in 5e to carry forward to what they do with 6e. Can I show off a cool mini I have nearby? I don't actually have any minis in this room. I've got that Drizzed action figure and the Guinevere. I've got a Kingler plushie and a Funko Pop, but I don't have any minis here in this room. Are you expecting the Feywild book to be good? I'm expecting it to be on par with every other 5e adventure. You see the Critical Role miniseries announcement? I did. I commented in the one. That's actually probably one that I'm more excited for. I'm like 30 plus episodes behind on Campaign 2. I got super into Campaign 1 of Critical Role. Like really, really into it. Like I started watching on YouTube, and then I caught up live. I went to a live show at Gen Con, and I followed Critical Role live consistently, Campaign 1 all the way through to the end. I was watching Talks Machina. I was up to date on everything, right? Went from the first Talks Machina ever all the way through. And then I started Campaign 2, and I was in it for a while, and then I fell out, and then I got back into it again, and then I fell out. And, the pandemic actually hurt my watching of Critical Role, because I used to, like, listen to it on the way to and from work every morning, and that was, like, a thing I would do, like, when I was in the car. and I haven't had to go in the car, so it like that kind of took away my normal avenue for watching Critical Role. But I'm excited about Exandria Unlimited because I love She-Ra and the Princesses of Power, and so Amy Ferreira, or I think that's her name, who's going to be in it as the voice of Adora, so I'm a huge fan of that, and I like Robbie Damon as well, so I'm interested to see all of that, so that'll be fun. I'll definitely check it out. Plus, it doesn't seem like it's a huge time investment because it's like a mini series, so that's cool. If it isn't too crazy to explain, can you give me the Sparks Notes explanation of CR for creatures? Is it based off average party level? In theory, yes. It's supposed to be challenge rating it's not, it doesn't handle it well. Challenge rating is supposed to be, if a creature is a challenge rating 4, that's supposed to mean that it is a average fight for 4 4th level characters, right? Challenge rating 4 is 4 4th level PCs. It's all balanced around a party of 4. It doesn't take into account rolled stats. It doesn't take into account extra feats, and it definitely does not take into account any magic items of any kind. So it's supposed to be 4, if a challenge rating 4 creature is supposed to be an adequate challenge for 4 level 4 PCs having used the point buy or standard array with 0 magic items. That's how that's supposed to work. But even within the concepts of challenge rating, you'll see that certain things are way more overpowered than others. I'm gonna run the Survivor. Trying to introduce my parents. What's a good way to introduce them without overwhelming them? I'd look into like the Essentials kit. I think has some pretty good intro adventures. I'd start there. And you know, don't be afraid to you could have them play as sidekicks too. They're a little less intensive playing as a sidekick. There's less stuff to learn and to know about. And just be patient, right? Like, you know, maybe don't start them off as wizards and clerics. Maybe like a fighter, rogue, something a little simpler with less magic, or, you know, kind of get a feel for what they're interested in. What are my thoughts on video games? Games like D&D, like Baldur's Gate, Solasta, or even Pathfinder Kingmaker. So I like Solasta Crown of the Magister a lot. I think it's the best version of 5e D&D you can play. It's leaps and bounds more accurate to 5e than Baldur's Gate 3 is by any means. The fact that you can do things like ready actions, and it follows the rule set pretty much to the letter. I also like Solasta Crown of the Magister because you can design your entire party, which is pretty cool, right? I can sit there and say, okay, I want my party to be a paladin, cleric, whatever I want it to be. I don't have to use my character and then a whole bunch of companions like I do in Baldur's Gate. That being said, Baldur's Gate is a AAA title with over-the-top production value. The graphics are amazing. And the storyline is, you know, it's very narratively focused and things like that. So and it has access to the D&D license, so that gives it, you know, the option to do more cool things. And I did an entire live stream playthrough of all of early access of Baldur's Gate 3 with 3 of my friends, where we all made our own characters, and I will say that that is probably the way to go about it. If you're going to play Baldur's Gate 3, I would play it with friends. That's how I would say that. You think we'll see pre-established characters in the D&D movie like Drizzt? I don't, and I think they'd be better, maybe like alluded to, like, you know, Lord Neverember, but I don't think you're going to do it justice. I would not put someone like Drizzt in the D&D movie. What is my day job? I work as an emergency manager for a utility company. Do you think D&D Beyond will ever make an integrated virtual tabletop? I think they might. I thought that was going to be a future plan of theirs, but we haven't heard anything. How's the new setup working out? Good. It's actually working out really well. It's a nice little cozy space. I got a coffee maker over here. I'm working on building a bathroom right outside the door here. So good so far. Have I heard anything about gem dragons? It was hinted at on the green dragon. As far as like minis, or we saw the gem dragonborn, and if this is indeed going to be a gem dragon, or if this is going to be like a Dragonomicon book in October, they'll be in there, I'm pretty sure. I use my water elemental I summon as armor by jumping into it on my turn. Since I can control it, I shouldn't be whelmed by it, should I? That's a DM call. It could be made either way. Just realized I'm 1 year older than D&D. Good morning from France. Well, good morning. Me looked up rules 2 to 3 side session as a DM. Okay, answered that already. I see a super chat from Brian Goza. Do I think skills need an update / overhaul? I've noticed that athletics versus acrobatics versus strength save versus dex save has a lot of gray area, and intelligence skills are too narrow. Oh, thank you for the super chat, Brian. Yeah, I mentioned that I like the concept of the skill point system in my top 10 mechanics I'd like in 5e video. I don't know if they... Well, I think the biggest disparity is there are what people like to call super stats. I don't know if I would call them super stats, but I'd say something like dexterity is an exceptionally useful ability score, whereas strength is not, right? So dexterity is your dexterity saving throw, exceptionally common saving throw. It is things like acrobatics, which you can use just about as much as you can use athletics. It is stealth. It is sleight of hand. It is your initiative score. It is your armor class, and it is all ranged weapon attacks that are non-thrown, right? And there are certain classes that can use just dexterity and do fine. And strength does your strength saving throw, which is arguably less common. Athletics checks, which depending, unless you're really trying to like break something or knock something down, most of them can be achieved via dexterity. Melee weapon attacks that are non-finesse. And I guess carrying capacity, and that's it. Which there's clearly strength is much more underpowered than dexterity. You could play, and I have played in multiple games where strength just isn't needed. Like no one in the party has strength. See our entire Rod of 7 Parts campaign. No one in there had above like a 10 strength, and it was fine. Okay, scrolling back up. Let's see. I wrote an adventure for Bloodspur. Would you look at it? So I'll tell you guys this. I want to look at everybody's stuff that they send me. Guys, time is my biggest thing. If I didn't have a day job and I did D&D content full time and I could sustain myself doing that, then I would love to be able to take on more folks' stuff to look. Because I have so much stuff that people want, like, you know, some people ask and they're like, hey, can I send this for you to look at? And then sometimes people just send me stuff. Like I have a mass inbox of DMs Guild things that people are just like, hey, I made this, check it out. And like sometimes they're from like, you know, fans, this is their first creation. But then sometimes they're like well-known D&D creators who are like, hey, here's my latest book, my latest module, best-selling thing on the DMs Guild or whatever. And I'm like, I just don't have the time to look at it. So that's why I do like that I have things like this ongoing partnership with the DMs Guild where it forces me to sit down and read through some stuff once a month. That helps. Is there a fantasy or sci-fi world that I'd like to see turned into an official setting? That's tricky. Let's see. Most of the fantasy worlds that I like, they're relatively close to D&D in theme, right? Like obviously like Lord of the Rings is relatively close, as is things like Legend of the Seeker, or I guess I would mind like a better, like a Percy Jackson. I think it could be interesting. Something with a little more like demigod rules, I think could be interesting. But I know there are RPGs designed around like Scion in the World of Darkness is a demigod RPG. So like if I really want to do that, I'll go play that. Do you think the skills in D&D need an update? Oh, we answered that already. What rules would you follow for over level 20? I would use 2C Gaming's Epic Legacy stuff if I was going to use that. Let's say I'd be in charge of 6E. What rules would you change, remove, add for better experience? I'd keep advantage, disadvantage. I like advantage, disadvantage. It's very clean. I'd probably, as much as it pains me to say, I'd probably keep the concept of class and subclass as opposed to prestige classes. I'd look at possibly retooling skills. I'd look at retooling spell lists. Because that can be a little complicated, and there's some that obviously, like, spell lists just don't make sense. So I'd look at that. That'd probably be what I could say for now. What do I think about the wild card rogue from Legends of Runeterra? I did a review on it. It's on the channel somewhere. I don't remember. I remember that I thought it was cool, and I liked the concept, but I haven't looked at it in a while. Do I think a bard/fighter multiclass is good? Yeah, I don't think it's bad. Depends on what you want to do, right? I like bard, full bard, or at least level, higher level bard. But it depends. If you're going to be a melee focus, yeah, bard fighter is fine. It just depends on how you want to multiclass it. What are your opinions on Kobold Press's Tome Beasts 1 and 2 and Creature Codex? Amazing. I love them. Creature Codex is got my monster in it, the Swollbold, which is great. Wealth by level would be huge. That was something we had in earlier editions. There is like a wealth by level and a magic item by level table in the DMG, and it's garbage. A better one would be greatly appreciated. I already said about 6E. What other dragon subclasses do you want? Dragon Patron Warlock. Seems like a no-brainer. Oath of the Dragon Paladin. 334 outdoors. I don't know. I don't know Kinzer and Co games, so I can't comment. How do I think mass combat should be run? Should I have the troops around them act like the walls of a dungeon? That'd be an interesting concept. I don't have a great way to do mass combat. I tried a couple times. I'm still looking for a good way to do it. Do you think that when playing a necromancer, they should get a low-level raised dead spell because they don't? Yes, I do. How do I get my parents, age 63 and 53, into D&D when they don't feel like listening to me at all in general? That sounds like a greater issue outside of just Dungeons and Dragons. Where did I get my swords? These are from GameStop. These are the Drizzt replica swords. You can get them only at GameStop, actually. Although I guess if you buy the $1,500 WizKids Drizzt life-size statue, it'll come with those. Yeah, it's hard to say what I'd want from 5e if I know that a 6e is coming. But if they are supposed to be backwards compatible, then I don't know. I'm just more player options. That's what I always want. I feel like the monk class is pretty overpowered and it's hard for me to balance. I don't think monk is overpowered. I think it's interesting because like stunning strike is super powerful. And most things beyond stunning strike are kind of not as good. Monk is a strong base class, but ultimately you're more than likely just punching people. You can do a bunch of attacks, but people. I feel like also the monks that I've played with need to be sure they're better at tracking their key points, because I don't think they do it well. Are you PST? I'm in Eastern time zone, so it's 3:15 a.m. for me currently. Someone who still plays 3.5, but it doesn't want because it doesn't do what 5e does. Do you think a 6e will consume 5e? Yeah, I think 6e will definitely consume it for sure. Lost Mines first arm. I like Lost Mines better, but Essentials Kit's newer, so it should be in theory better balanced. What's your opinions on D&D villains like Strahd or Tiamat? I think D&D has always had a problem with making villains. They're cool looking. I think 5e doesn't handle them well at all. I don't think 5e has a good final boss. That's why they stop most in games at around 10th level, because 5e I don't think was balanced much beyond 10th level. It was very good in levels 1 to 10, which is why almost all of the adventures we see end at around level 10. Would I ever consider making a nerd immersion movie? Like maybe a TED biography? I mean, I could. I don't feel like there's enough interest in me to make a movie or a biography even. Like that sounds silly to me, personally. But I mean, maybe if there's enough of a clamor for it and I feel like I could do it justice, sure. My life story's not that, I don't have a lot of super interesting stuff. Like, I have some interesting things, but I don't have enough, I feel like, to make a biography, but... I don't know, wait till the mosquito lands and then smack it. My level 6 party, Hexblade, Scribes Wizard, Cobalt Soul Monk, Drake Warden Ranger, Inquisitive Rogue is about to face off against a White Dragon. Would an adult... I would throw an adult White Dragon at him, but I'm a little more rough on my players. Personally. Yes, okay. That might be, Alex, what you said. What's my favorite subclass? Oath of the Ancients Paladin. Favorite class and subclass you've played? Paladin, Oath of the Ancients Paladin, 100%. I do like Tempest Cleric a lot as well, and I'm enjoying playing a Whispers Bard at the moment. Although Blade Singer was fun as well. How would I run a game for mostly new players? The party I'm DM consists of a complete noob, 3 players in my old group I used to be a player in, and 2 people who played one-offs. You just got to make sure you talk to your players, get an understanding, figure out what they want for the game to be. Make sure everybody's aware, like, hey, we got new folks and we're still kind of learning here, so just gotta, we might limp along for a few sessions before we hit our stride, and then, go from there. What do you say about Mr. Matt Colville? Don't know him, so I can't really speak to it. Does claws from a Tabaxi monk increase in damage since they are an unarmed weapon when the monk level up? Yeah, in theory they would. They would increase the damage type. That's just like you'd start off with a monk with just as much damage with your punches. So it's really just the difference of bludgeoning versus slashing damage. Can Giant's Might stack with Enlarge Reduce to make a huge fighter? I believe so. What do you think is the best way for players to handle knowing a monster's abilities, such as a Medusa? Ignore it, embrace it, or roll for it. That's, again, something I brought up. I don't love the lack of that's something I feel like you also need to establish with players up front. Are Medusas handled the traditional Medusa in the monster manual in your world? And then, with the players' backgrounds and stuff, how much do they know? I hate that, because it used to just be make a knowledge check about whatever it was, and you could figure it out that way. I struggle with that. I've had a DM one time, which I thought was very interesting. A DM said, your character's knowledge is your knowledge as a player. So whatever you know about D&D is what your character knows. And that was a very interesting thing. It definitely helped, too, because we had some newer players in the party, but it obviously is very metagamey, right? Like, we were fighting a shambling mound. And I was like, well, don't use fire or lightning, because that ain't going to work. And then everybody's like, oh. And I was like, well, yes, it's not a good idea. And they were like, okay. But, it was just a weird concept to me, the DM was like, yeah, whatever you know, your character knows. And that was I don't know how I feel about it. So I don't have a good answer for you, unfortunately. What's the weirdest character concept you have but haven't gotten a chance to play? I don't know. I mean, I'm still, I'm trying to figure out when my current campaign that I'm running ends, which we're 120 episodes deep at this point, 3 years running. When we end this campaign, we're going to get a chance to play. And I'm down to my lizard folk Dampier, renegade fighter, or my satyr beast barbarian. So those are kind of funky, but I haven't really built crazy concepts for characters. I usually build funky, functional ones. What's your thought on Pathfinder Kinmaker Adventure being adapted to 5e next year? Didn't even know that was happening. So interesting. What's my thoughts on the Tarask? I've always felt he's kind of out of place. Yeah, well, he's from another planet, so that could be why he feels out of place. Yeah, so David Beckett about my Satyr Barbarian. So the DM had us roll stats, and he had us do 3d6 plus 1d8, drop the lowest. And I rolled like a monster. I rolled an 18 and I think 2 17s. So an 18 plus 2 strength gives you a 20. And we used all Tasha's rules, so customizing your origin so you could swap your ability scores around. Have I ever ran the Red Hand of Doom? If so, what do you think about it? I have not ran it, but I think I own it, but I have not ran it. Have I seen The Pugilist from Benjamin Huppen? Yes, I have seen it. I think I own it. I think he might have sent it to me. I have not read into it enough. I was going to do that was back, oh God, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, when I was doing DM's Guild stuff pretty regularly, just like because I was just doing it whenever I had time before I was making a million videos a week. That was on my list. But one of my top 10 topics that my patrons are voting on that will be coming around probably relatively soon is top 10 homebrew classes. We did subclasses this week, or last week, this week. We're going to be doing top 10 homebrew classes, of which that is, and I imagine that will likely make it to the list. How was my day? Busy. I had meetings that started at 8 o'clock. I had meetings that ran straight through till noon. Then I was answering emails from noon to 1. Then I had a meeting from 1 to 3. Then I had a meeting at 3. And then I was working on other stuff for a deadline submission for work until 5 o'clock. Then, my wife left to pick the kids up from daycare. Kids came home. We went out to the store, got fast food for dinner, came back. Kids went to bed. Took a shower, spent some time hanging out with my wife, and then here I am here. So that's my day. Busy. Do I think there should be an official cook class? I don't think it's necessary, but if you want it, go for it. Okay. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to catch up with chat, as I normally do here. Did you see Dimension 20's Crown of Candy Mass Combat? No, but my players do watch Dimension 20, so I'm sure they'll tell me. Would you... how would a 5e to 6e work on a technical standpoint? Like, how do you think characters would transfer? I don't know. I've never seen anything. The only thing I've seen is, like, 3.0 to 3.5, and that was so close. It was really simple. Like, there was very minimal transition from 3E to 3.5. So I assume it'll be relatively similar. Oh. Do you think an immovable rod could be used as a handle of a weapon like a spear and axe? Okay, I'll get to your question there in a second. I just saw that super chat come through. Well, let's scroll down to the super chat. Do you think an immovable rod could be used as the handle of a weapon like a spear or an axe? Also, where/how big was the gar you have mounted? Okay, so yeah, I think an immovable rod as a handle could be very interesting. I think that'd be great for like setting a charge, right? Like if someone you're trying to hold back cavalry and you click it and you've got your sword and like now it's not moving. That'd be actually a really cool idea for a weapon. I actually really like that. I might be using that in my games. The gar is on the other side of this wall. I can go grab it if you want, but it's like 30. Oh God, it's in like the upper 30s, 38 maybe, 36 inches. Caught in upstate New York. How do I organize my campaign notes / world lore? I don't, and that's my biggest problem. I'm very much a lazy dungeon master. I haven't wrote notes for my campaign in months. I usually try to I've been trying to find a good system, right? There's World Anvil, there's all these other systems, Notion people use. Currently, the little bit of lore that I have for my world is in Google Docs in a series of folders on Google Drive. That's where I keep things currently. I'd like to get better about it, but I don't have a good way to do it. I can't seem to get a challenging combat for a level 13 party. How do I usually handle encounters? I usually go over and throw more stuff at my party, and I'm not afraid to take them out. So that's just how I am. Would I ever talk about / have I played any World of Darkness or Chronicles of Darkness games? Yes, I did play a very short-lived Hunter the Vigil campaign, and it was amazing. I loved that game so much. The world that my DM or my storyteller had put together was just beautiful. I was so ingrained in the story, was so into it. The setting, it was so good. and it just did the thing that campaigns do, where they just fall apart. And I had so much fun. Like, some of us we had such good characters. There was so much good tension and interesting stuff with the characters and the story, and I am so bummed. I could do a video on it if you want, or I could talk about it here if we get, a little lull in the chat. If I have access to expanded spell for my subclass, i.e. Warlock, Hexblade, Shield, you take Magic Initiate, can you cast it with your Warlock spells slots throughout the day? Unfortunately, the wording on Magic Initiate specifically states that you can't. It doesn't say that you can. The newer things, which is another problem I have with 5e, all of the newer feats and racial abilities and things that give you spells say you can cast these if you have spell slots. The original ones don't, and therefore, by design, they're not able to do that, even though it'd be very simple to go back in errata and change that language. Wizards of the Coast doesn't seem like they want to do it. Have you ever run games in the Shadowfell? I have not. You watch anything interesting lately? Any shows or movies? I've been watching, I watched Loki, right? No spoilers for anybody who hasn't seen it, so we don't have to talk about it, but I watched Loki. I've been keeping up with The Bad Batch. I watched Rey and the Last Dragon the other night. I watched Castlevania Season 4 when it came out. I watched Godzilla vs. Kong a little while ago when that came out. I watched the Mortal Kombat movie. But mostly I've been rewatching Pokemon with my son. He's 4 and he is obsessed with Pokemon, and it's awesome. I love it so much. So we've gone through all of Kanto, all of Johto, and we're into Hoenn at the moment now, and we're pretty far along in that. And we're actually getting to the episodes that I don't remember watching growing up, so it's actually interesting because now I'm watching them for the first time. How often do I make enemies run away versus stay till they drop? I'm not as good about making enemies run away. Most of the time I have them stay till they drop. I should get better about that, and I plan to in our second campaign. What do I think about a Westmarch kind of game? I am totally unfamiliar with Westmarch. I've heard of it, I just don't know enough about it. Curse of Strahd, I plan on playing a Glamour Bard. How could I be strong, inspirational archetype in a setting imagined? Yeah. I mean, you can try to be that ray of sunshine. If you haven't seen Dice Camera Action, you can see how Evelyn, how Anna Prosser's Evelyn Marthane is. She is basically trying to be that little ray of sunshine in the dark world that is Barovia. She comes off a little preachy, and I think that was designed by the character, but it'll be tricky, but I think you could do it. Is the Alchemist Artificer too bad to be used or just really mediocre? It's pretty mediocre compared to the other ones. I think it definitely fails by comparison, but as somebody who played through Curse of Strahd with the OG Alchemist Artificer, which had like the bombs, the fire and acid bombs that were complete garbage, I can't really talk because everything's better by comparison than that. Do we think we'll get any more base classes? No, I don't. Swashbuckler is already a subclass for Rogue, so I don't think so. What would your dump step be for a Twilight Cleric in Tomb of Annihilation campaign? Charisma, I think, would be. Although there is some banishment stuff in Tomb of Annihilation. But I would say Charisma. You can definitely get some good intelligence checks in Tomb of Annihilation. Do I have any third-party campaign settings to recommend? I like Cobalt Press's Midgard, but I am not familiar enough with it to speak to it with any, I know I have several books, I've read through a bunch, and I like what I read through, but I am not familiar enough with it to give it a true fair shake. I feel like to tell you without a shadow of a doubt to check it out, but I know there are a lot of people that love it, so just numbers-wise, it has to be good. Obviously, I'm a huge fan and big friends with the Venture Maiden, so there's the Venture Maiden campaign guide coming out from 2C Gaming, so I can recommend that just because that's friends of mine. That's the best I got for you. Do you think the likelihood they will update old Sorcerer subclasses? They won't. I highly doubt they won't. I bet you they will whenever 6E comes out. All of the cool stuff and things they've advanced forward with any of the classes, they'll go back and add those in 6E, but I don't think they're going to do it for 5E. How do you go about creating meaningful NPCs that the players will become attached to? Is there such a thing as too in-depth an NPC? I find, more often than not, and so many other DMs will agree with me here, that you can build the most interesting NPCs in the world, and your players will latch on to the goofy one you made up in the moment. A funny accent seems to help a lot. That's the best I can give you. Any of the NPCs that my party, either you make them so, like, they're someone that the party has to keep going back to, whether that means because, like, they own a business or a shop that the party has a lot of vested interest in, like a tavern that they always stay at, or a magic shop they always go to, or you give them a funny accent, or you combine the two, right? I mean, not to use Critical Role as the perfect example, but Gilmore and Pumat Soul both were owners of magic item shops, and they both had interesting and unique voices. You know, I had a character in my games named Eddie. He sounds like Christopher Walken, and he loves dragons, and had all sorts of ability to do things with dragons. The party had killed a dragon, they went to find him, he talked like Christopher Walken, they went back to him constantly. In my Princess of the Apocalypse live stream that's here on the channel, I made a very imposing lich in my game sound like Christopher Walken, and they went back to visit him all the time. In my Rise of Tiamat campaign, I made a southern accented guy who owns a pet store and does taxidermy, and they all constantly went back to visit him. What's my favorite D&D race to play? You know, I'm pretty vanilla. Because a lot of times I ended up playing charisma classes. I would end up being a half elf. But I would like to play a grung at some point. Because I like the grung race quite a bit. But I'll do the stereotypical 5e answer and say tiefling. I like tieflings as well. Any TTRPG systems that you play / want to play / look at besides D&D or Pathfinder? Yeah, I want to play in a Changeling, the Lost game, so much. I own the entire Changeling, the Lost book series, all of them, and I started getting into the second edition because I want to play that game, and no one will run it for me. Because the problem is, with my group of friends, I often get slotted as the forever DM. And with a lot of series and things outside of Dungeons and Dragons, I'm the only one who's read the source books. So more often than not, they say, well, you've read them, so you should run them. And that's how we go. The way knowledge works for me is a history, arcana, religion roll. DC is 11 plus the CR of the creature. If they pass it, they can ask a single question and +1. That's not a bad idea, Gunnerwall. I like that. Do I have any special rules to handle crafting at my table? I don't. I have a million resources from a bunch of different great authors from the DM's Guild and otherwise, right? Hammond's Harvesting Guide, Gesh's Guide to Making Things. What I want to do before my second campaign is sift through all of those and come up with an amalgamation of all of the best things I think that are out there, solidify that, and then provide that to my players. This is how we're handling crafting going forward. Have I heard about the new setting books, Inferno, Dante's Guide to Hell for 5e, and Inferno, Virgilia? No, I have not heard of those. Thoughts on a monk with unarmed fighting obtained through the fighting style feat? Yeah, I think unarmed fighting style for a monk is huge, especially because later on, when you get to the point where your unarmed fighting style feat is useless, like say level 12, you can swap out your fighting style for a different fighting style, so it'll be useful for you again. Is there a character that I miss playing? Yeah, I miss playing Larenthir, my first ever paladin, my first ever character from 5e. He was an Oath of the Ancients paladin. He was awesome. And I also miss playing Lagwin in my Rada 7 Parts campaign that Jordan ran. That was a lot of fun. And I loved that group, so I'd love to go back to that. I also really miss playing my original 3.5e character. He was a really good time. Why do you think they will move to 6e when 5e is so popular and high in sales? Well, again, this is not something that I thought, but something that I heard, so take that with a grain of salt. But I feel like they moved to it because they're starting to realize at this point, as we're seeing with all the changes to the new rules, the way things are handling the fluidity of things, I think they're realizing that they're being hamstrung by sticking with their own set of mechanics that are 10 years old, and they found things they'd like to improve and change on, and it's starting to become more difficult to shoehorn that into the existing framework of 5e. So they want to have more fluidity and variability with things, and I think that's why they'll ultimately move to 6e. Any homebrew rules that I enjoy? Yeah, I like giving extra bonus languages for intelligence, every point of positive intelligence modifier. I like letting strength do 1.5 times damage when you wield a strength-based weapon with 2 hands. I like giving a feat at first level. Those are rules that I typically use. If you throw out a spell conversion and let the sorcerer recover sorcery points on a short rest, would it be balanced against the wizard cleric? I would not let a sorcerer recover sorcery points on a short rest. I'd give them something similar to the wizard's arcane recovery, but with sorcery points. So that once a short rest, they can recover half of their level in sorcery points, and that's once per long rest. If you're going to try to do that, that's how I would handle it. And I'd keep spell conversion in there and do it that way. Considering making one of my players the final big bad evil guy because I have a hard time giving my villains screen time. Talk it out with your player. If they're cool with it, then go for it. But otherwise, I wouldn't want to have player versus player as my final combat of the campaign. Do you think they're purposefully power creeping 5e? It's power creeping. We all can see it. Look at the sorcerer. That's more than enough. Look at this player's handbook sorcerer and the Tasha's Cauldron sorcerer. That's power creep in a nutshell. Have I ever ran... Oops. Okay, wait, I missed the super chat. I think 6e will hit in 2024 for the 50th anniversaries. Agreed, BK Dan. That's right in the 2 to 6 year time frame. So, more than likely. All right. However, ran point by with the minimum being below 8. I'm wondering how to balance the point cost, well, gain in this case. Oh, I see. You're saying you can go below 8 to get more points. I have not ever done that. Thoughts on WebDM's announcement for a book? Yeah, my video on Wednesday was sponsored by WebDM's book, and I'll have another video coming out in conjunction with WebDM next week or the week after, talking about some of the subclasses. So they're pretty passionate about it, and from what I've seen, it looks pretty awesome. What do I think of the concept of a Wild Mount or just an Exandria pre-written adventure? I think it'd sell like hotcakes because people love Critical Role. 60, answered that already. What I recommend, one-shot module, what I recommend for a one-shot to introduce my neighbors 14 and 16 to D&D. They like undead. That is tricky. I don't know. Best eating freshwater fish. The only reason I'm awake is because I've been fishing and I currently have 3 gar in a cooler. Nice. 334 outdoors. Awesome. I'm a crappie fan. If I'm going to eat freshwater fish, I'm a big fan of crappie, you know. But honestly, when you're frying them, battering and frying them, it doesn't really matter what kind of fish you put in there. Although walleye also very good. Harder to catch around here, but I do enjoy a good walleye. If you feel you're getting exhausted with too many videos, maybe slow the pace. Rather you be excited. No, I'm not exhausted. It's just busy with work. Like I said, it's just, you know, I'm in a busy time for my work at the moment. One of my players uses a movable rod impaled the green dragon leg to hold it in place. Yeah, I mean, that'll happen. I love a video about Chronicles World of Darkness. Yeah, you know, it doesn't do as well as D&D, right? The 5e stuff obviously kicks ass in the terms of, you know, numbers and analytics on the channel, but I can always throw something out there. Do you think Strixhaven will benefit from the fact that there's never been a Harry Potter RPG? I definitely think it can't hurt. So we'll see. We'll see how much of a correlation there is, how easy people could adapt it. But yeah, I think a Harry Potter RPG would also sell like gangbusters. How do I handle players wanting to swap characters? I'm nearing the end of an arc and completely separate from each other. 2 characters want to swap off. It's tricky, right? You want your character... So ultimately, you want your players to be happy, right? I'll say that. If your players aren't happy... I think WotC will be sold separately from Hasbro. That is interesting. I don't know if that'll happen, but it's an interesting concept. So you want your anyway swapping characters. You want your characters to be happy, your players to be happy. If they're not enjoying their character, yeah, it makes sense to swap them, right? I don't think, but how you handle it will depend, right? Do they have do they go through some process to get new characters in? There's definitely creative ways to handle it, but like I said, as long as your players are happy, it shouldn't really matter. The only time that it can kind of be an issue, and then you know, and I can say this from personal experience and from watching things, is if you're doing like a stream and it's like a show that people are watching. And the reason I say that is because, like, if you were watching a show that you like and then all of a sudden your favorite character just disappears and they add somebody new, that'd be a little off-putting. But we've seen it happen before. How's my day today? Busy. No fun allowed. Very busy. I homebrewed an item. It's a pickle made of silver and enabled in green. Christmas pickle. Nice. How do you think D&D would have evolved differently if Gary Gygax wasn't forced out of TSR? Man, that is so before my time. I have no clue. I don't know enough about the man to know how much difference it would be. What do you think of a healing cantrip that causes the healed person? I don't know exactly what you're saying. I think a healing cantrip would have to basically, it can't just be a free heal, right? It's got to be a, I think if you were to say maybe have a healing cantrip that you use one of your hit dice, you roll one of your hit die. So if you have a D8 hit die, you roll a D8, and you can heal someone that you touch the thing that you heal that you rolled. So you're expending a resource, i.e., your hit dice, to heal someone else. I think that would be a decent healing cantrip. Did I read Wheel of Time? No, I didn't, but I've heard so many good things. But it's a big commitment to get into that series. So, also was wondering what's a good way to hand out magic items. Should I be really reserved? I flood my players with magic items because I love making magic items. I am gonna make a video on Monty Hall DMing in the future, so that might be the video for you to check out. It's a good. Ever watched Shaolin Showdown? Hell yeah, man! I've seen some actually really interesting folks. I saw some Shengang Wu magic items kicking around. What are your thoughts? On having an adversary for a party base, have a class and subclass. Yeah, I think that's fine. I think you could definitely do that. You could basically make a character to be a villain if you want to have them be, you know, more powered, or you know, have things be relatively familiar to the players. That's not uncommon. I've done that before. What's my favorite D&D adventure book? I desperately need one to play. I liked Curse of Strahd. I like Baldur's Gate and Icewind Dale in theory, though I haven't ran or played them myself. Speaking of Pokemon, have you ever had an idea about a Pokemon like D&D? Oh, you mean like a Pokemon TTRPG? Yeah, there is a couple floating out there. There's actually some 5e adaptations. I think that would be another thing that would sell amazingly. A TTRPG for Pokemon, people would buy that like crazy. I mean, hell, we all know everybody would shell out money and play a Pokemon MMO, but they don't seem to want to do that either. Yeah, I'm hoping for another round of UA for martial characters like the Strixhaven ones for sure. How do you handle with the DM/GM burnout? You know, I haven't really had DM/GM burnout because I've been building a homebrew world and I like showing it off, so that's part of the fun. And I don't do a ton of prep, and I think that helps. Right? I have heard people prep, you know, an hour for every hour, or you know, however long they do all this preparation. I haven't shown up with notes or preparations for my campaign for at least 6 months. But I know my players well, I know my world well, and I know the general trajectory that they're on. And anytime I've ever planned out something in depth to use against my players, they basically throw it all out the window and confuse me, so I don't rely on notes too much and just kind of wing it. What do you think of Mage Hand Press, a dark matter campaign setting? It's cool. I did a couple videos with them. I actually have some stuff coming up that'll be working with Mage Hand Press on. It's different. It's like, you know, it's a space setting. It's a space campaign world. Not like, but it's not D&D in space. It's just space using D&D rules. Just finished a year-long campaign, and I asked you a while about Shepherd Druids. Plan to mix it up, play Starfinder. Are you familiar with the system? I'm familiar. I know that Starfinder exists, and I know that it's Space Pathfinder, but that's the extent of what I know. Aren't Hexbloods associated with hags? In theory, yes. What other magical creature would be a cool replacement for hags? As in, like, for Hexbloods? Any kind of art, like Fae creature. You could do satyrs or... I don't have any other good Fae creatures off the top of my head. I might resolve the Glamour Bard thing by forming a cult of personality. That'd be pretty cool. What are your thoughts on having an ad? Yeah, we talked about that. Can you make a video about the near non-existent limits with Find Familiar? Yeah, I can make a video on Find Familiar, for sure. I'll write that down. Find Familiar. Sure. I know you've done it in the past, but have you considered making a monthly review of viewers' homebrew concepts? Yeah, I might be able to do some sort of raffle something. It's just time, right? It's always, if I had an extra, I mean, I don't sleep very much as it is, so I utilize most hours of the day. I probably utilize 22 hours out of the day no, I wouldn't say it's 22. Definitely 18 hours. I definitely utilize 18 hours a day at minimum, if not more than that. So if I had more time, I could do more things. How often do I play 3.5? I haven't played 3.5 in 8+ years. What new class concept would I like to see added in 6e? Necromancer. I'm a bit bad with accents. Are there any tips you have for getting better at them? Practice. Grok says practice. Definitely practice. Don't afraid to be caricatures of an accent, as long as you're respectful with it. And don't be afraid to be characters from pop culture, right? You might not be able to do an accent, but could you do Patrick Star from SpongeBob? Could you do Squidward? Could you pick a character from any movie or cartoon or something that you like that has like a kind of certain kind of voice or way in which they deliver things, lisps, you know, things like that. You know, it's you know, people have a hard time, and it's just like, well, think about what movies you watch or things that you like. Could you do a Hagrid? You know what I mean? Could you do a Morgan Freeman? You know, these kind of voices can add. I know they're kind of silly and people might laugh at it, but as long as you stick to it and keep it, you know, everybody laughed their asses off when Matt Mercer did like the Pumat Soul kind of Midwestern vibe, you know, accent, and now it just becomes a thing. Like it's just how it is. So you can, you know, like I said, it's easy to just pick things like that. Raise the tone of your voice, lower the tone of your voice. You know, just take it and go a little bit higher or go a little bit lower, and that's pretty easy to just add a little bit of variation. Did you notice my super chat? BK Dan, yes, I did answer you from before. When you make a crafting list, yeah, I'll definitely make a video about a crafting thing when I do it. Do I have any strong/fun multi-class ideas for Stars Druid? I have not come up with a good idea for Stars Druid just because I don't particularly love it, although it does have power. A lot of good, there's a lot of good concentration spells on the Druid list, so. WotC did not mention 6e. It's never been mentioned by Wizards of the Coast. I have it from sources relatively tied close to WotC on multiple different people telling me 6e is on the way. If Death Cleric uses its inescapable destruction divinity on a creature that has damage immunity to necrotic, does the creature take the necrotic damage? I'm gonna have to go look up Death Cleric because I don't know anybody that plays the Death Cleric because Grave Cleric is just so much better. Death Cleric. Negative necrotic damage dealt by this ignores resistance to necrotic damage. It does not ignore immunity to necrotic damage, so they would take nothing. Some people are throwing it out there, 2024 for the 50th anniversary of D&D. Yes, that's when I think we'll get 6e. Yeah, I don't feel comfortable asking people to run games for me. And I know there's plenty of people that have offered to run games for me, both 5e or otherwise. And I know that that's weird. Like, how are you going to get someone to run a game for you if you don't ask? And that's a great question. But I don't want to impose myself on people. And especially now, I'm not trying to like toot my own horn or anything, but now like the channel has grown a little bit, so I'm like a little more known in like RPG spaces. I don't want to intimidate anybody and like use that to like try to get folks to Head of Hasbro is releasing an OG Transformers RPG. I heard that was going to be a thing. I heard there's supposed to be a crossover with Power Rangers in 5e as well. I know the Hellboy 5e RPG is supposed to be coming out soon. There's a bunch of stuff. What kind of changeling were you going to play? Have you made any characters? I made so many characters, but it's been so long that I don't remember what my characters were. I made these characters, God, 10 years ago, maybe. I made these characters when like I first started getting into changeling. And I never, like, I read all the books because I loved, like, the lore and the interesting of the world and everything. So I read all the books, but I never actually fully, or if I built a character, I don't remember what it was. Have I ever played a bard class on purpose? Or a bad class on purpose, sorry. I played an Undying Warlock with the custom familiar. He lost his hand in an explosion, and his hand is a crawling claw. No, I've never played a bad class on purpose. I have thought about trying to play a ranger just to see if I could handle it, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. How many magic items and of what rarity do you think players should receive upon progression? I'm currently level 10 and just noticed my magic items, and it's an interesting compared to other players. That's hard to say. I don't have a great, like, wealth by level, magic items by level, and that's another problem that I have with 5e. In 3.5, part of the thing was the game was balanced around you having magic items, so they gave you wealth by level. So you would know that, like, at level 6, you should have 12,000 gold pieces. And the better thing about that was you knew what magic items cost. So if you had 12,000 gold pieces, you knew that you could spend that on anything you want. And since magic items had a price associated with them, you could say, oh, I could buy this, this, and this. I could buy this one 12,000 gold piece magic item, or whatever you wanted to do. That is how that worked, so it worked out well. We don't really have a good idea to give you a balance. There's a really shitty table in the Dungeon Master's Guide, and even like the highest magic campaign. Let me see if I can find it real quick, and I'll just read it to you because it's ridiculous. Magic items by level. Let's see if this is the table. I don't remember what it's called. Damn it. Is it wealth by level? I forget what they call it. It's in, I know what it is in like the physical Dungeon Master Guide. I have it like tagged. Let me go to the DMG real quick. See if I can find it. It's like starting adventures at like higher levels or something like that. What the hell is it? Campaign tracking? Nope. Linking adventures. Right before this, the end of this one. Sorry, I know this is really super quality content as I try to look through D&D Beyond's Dungeon Master's Guide. Tiers of play, linking adventures, traps, dungeons. Where the hell is this? Oh, God. I don't remember where it is. There's definite. I should go get my Dungeon Master's Guide. But yeah, maybe I'll do a video on the table because it's just like there's not a good example for it. All right. Okay. Kind of changeling. Okay. I get that they could move, but it would be a bad business practice to move in the year they just sold. Yeah. Any way to run large-sized PCs? I don't think large-sized PCs break the game balance too much, but a lot of people seem to think they do. Well, there's magic items by level in Xanathar's Guide, but that's not what I'm talking about. But thank you. I will go pull that up, too. I wrote my first adventure for the DM's Guild, and I'm pretty psyched about it. What's the best way to get it to people? I mean, you could mention it in the Nerd Immersion Discord. That's not a bad call. Are excited for E3? Yes, I am excited for E3. I'm excited to see. I think we're gonna get at least one new Smash Brothers character announced at E3, if not both. I've heard rumors that remasters, or at least a collection similar to what we had for Super Mario, with the Mario Brothers collection, we're gonna get that for Zelda. I have heard about that. I think we might get like release date for Breath of the Wild 2. Maybe the Switch Pro or whatever they're gonna call it could be announced at E3. And then I really don't know what to expect. I'm kind of out of the loop on like other next-gen non-Nintendo consoles, so I'll kind of just be watching what's happening with Xbox and just seeing like what new stuff is coming out. Do I think a good fix for 4 Elements Monk would be to basically overhaul the monk to make a wisdom-based half-caster? I've seen people do that. Wisdom-based half-caster. I've seen people use basically a wisdom-based warlock using the invocations. That's probably a closer bet. How would a D&D party survive a trip to the Far Realm? By leaving. You from the Midwest? No, I am from New York. So, yeah, crappie. Yeah, no, I'm from New York. So I've always called it crappy, but more likely for October to book to be Dragonlance. I think it's not going to be Dragonlance, unfortunately. Monty Hall DMing, future video. How about healing centric that stabilizes fallen characters? Oh, I don't remember what that was in reference to. You ever hear of a Handbook of Heroes? Fun little comedy or webcomic. It sounds familiar, Handbook of Heroes. How do I make sure the magic items you make aren't game-breaking and OP? I've done that. I've made game-breakingly OP magic items quite a bit. So through trial and error, I've learned what I should and should not do. So that helps me. If it seems too good to be true, it probably is. And just tell your players, like, hey, I'm trying out some new magic items. We might have to tweak or change this in the future if it turns out to be too much. And I feel like if you preface that at the start, the players are much more accepting than if you change it during the game. Favorite D&D YouTubers? Love XP to level 3, RuneSmith, and Davey Chappie. I don't really watch D&D YouTubers either. Jordan is probably one of the only ones, and AJ Pickett and Mr. Rex, like just for the lore stuff, because I DM a lot, so I don't love having to do a bunch of research. So those three. But yeah, I don't watch a ton of D&D YouTube. I used to watch a lot more and consume a lot more content again when I was commuting, but I don't as much anymore. Okay. Alright, what are your thoughts on open world sandbox campaign? I'm fine with it. I usually end up kind of I do a mixture of both. Like, I let my players just kind of go where they want. And then have an overarching story that sometimes they meet, sometimes they don't. But then I can kind of move stuff along. I did see an interesting TikTok that talked about letting players train, like spend resources and having their characters train to gain levels if they want. And it takes essentially a season, like if you think about the 4 seasons we have in our world, training to level up would take a season. It would cost them some money and some resources and downtime, but it would essentially take a full season for them to level up. But you in the background determine what happens. So like you have all the plots and storylines and things that are in play, and then you advance them a whole season's worth of time. So the world is constantly moving. Like, so if this villain was planning to break into this place and steal this artifact, and then the whole campaign shifts a season and the party's not there to try to help, then that happens and you move it along. I think that could be really interesting to make for like a sandbox campaign. Do I think WotC will ever make a book based on 11 to 20 content? Probably not. What do I think of a healing cantrip expense to hit healed parties hit dice? Yeah, I think that's great. How do I handle material spell components? Me and my friend usually ignore them because it's usually just two of us playing and one DMing. I don't care too much about material spell components. I come from a time, and I was always just like, you know, if it costs 500 gold pieces for this, just dock 500 gold from your from what you have, rather than like you searching for specific material components. Just dock 500, you know, gold pieces from your inventory and move on. Have I played Mutants and Masterminds? No, I have not. What are your thoughts on this homebrew called Limit Break or Grid? If you drop to 0 hit points, you can come back to full everything after you fight, die. I think it's a fine mechanic if you want to incorporate it in your games. Best official adventure for mounted build? Oh, I don't know. Mounted combat is kind of funky in 5e. You separate gods for the various D&D races. In my current campaign, we're using the Faerunian Pantheon. So I have that done for me. In my campaign, I'm working on that right now. I prefer homebrew. Or I prefer homebrew, but I'm also okay with taking an existing world and then homebrewing within that world. Like taking something like Faerun and then making my own homebrew story in the world of Faerun. So I have existing stuff to fall back on. If I need to like pull resources or like look up information about a city, I have some stuff to choose from. But I'm still doing my own homebrew story. Do I play Adventure Leagues in person? I used to do, well, Adventures League was my convention thing. When I would go to a convention, I would play Adventures League because it was an easy, quick way to jump into a game. And I mostly played healers because I was welcome at every AL table. Why are there so few paladin subclasses? A good question. I don't know the answer for you. Have you ever had players become Pokemon trainers in your games? As in, like, well, one of my characters has a Charizard. I had a whole storyline where I gave him a dragon egg. It wasn't a dragon egg, and it was a whole thing. And like I made stats up and found stats for a Charmander, and he hatched it, and then he trained it in battle, and it became a Charmeleon, eventually Charizard. So in that respect, yeah, I guess I do have a Pokemon trainer. Have I used the Sphere of Power / Might system? I have not. I was never an Age of Empires guy, so that's not, again, that's not a huge thing. I'm not like an RTS or any of those kind of like combat builder stuff. That was never for me. How do I feel about playing a Beastmaster Ranger if your pet progressed as either a barbarian, fighter, rogue? I think if you were gonna have a pet and you allowed it to progress similar to like a sidekick, like a lessened sidekick rules, that could be pretty interesting. Do you think WotC will adapt the younger generation in the way D&D is played? So more like CR, almost no dungeon crawls. It's all about character. It might. I don't know. If it's not Dragonlance, do you reckon it's going to be 5e Dragonomicon? I think that's kind of the closest we're going to get. Yeah, I think it might be. I'm hopeful, but I'm willing to be disappointed because this is Wizards of the Coast. How do I steer players in a more positive direction for the type of characters they are trying to play? I just work with my players, honestly. I sit down, I try to have a conversation with them, typically away from the other players, like have a one-on-one conversation with them, talk about it, see what's going on with them, see how they feel, and then go from there. I have Matt Colville's Illrigger. It's on my list of things to review. I just haven't reviewed it yet. I've just been so busy lately. Oh, thank you. I do Krusty Krab Pizza t-shirt. Any advice for a new DM that found himself with a party of 12 people? Dude. Like how to make fights feel good. I feel like, I hate to say it, but with 12 people, I think it's going to be bogged down no matter what, just because you're going to have so much time between everybody's turn that someone's going to feel bogged down. I don't know, man. That's a lot. Best I can tell you is tell people to be ready, figure out what they're going to do, maybe have them pre-roll their attacks and damage, tell them what the AC is, have them pre-roll, AC 16, and then everybody pre-rolls so that when it gets to their turn, you can move through combat a little bit quicker. If I could design a generic subclass like they did for Strix, what would you want to design? Paladin. Maybe like Paladin, Fighter. I don't know. Yeah, but for a Paladin for sure. I give exhaustion instead of consuming materials that are consumed. Palladium has a good fantasy RPG. You should check it out. Definitely. Yeah, Palladium had... God, what was it called? I remember it. I remember the old one. I don't know if it's the same one. Good night, BK Dan. Sleep well. 5e wasn't made for 12. Best thing to do is split it up. Yeah, 2 groups of 6 would probably be your best bet, honestly. Have I ever taken a 3.5 or some other system and used them for 1v1 versus 5e? I thought of using a 3.5 character as a boss monster for my 5e group as a man lost from time. I have thought about doing that because I have this whole thing. My current campaign has like a big focus on prophecy, and the party had to gather 12 heroes together, 4 of them being the party, plus an additional 8 from a variety of different locations from different planes, and the prophecy has been kind of fluid. And one of the original characters from the prophecy was going to be a 3.5e character brought to 5e. One that I had built years ago that I never got a chance to play. And it was like a hero lost from time. I ultimately decided against it because it would have just been too complicated, mechanic-wise. I don't know what was intense. Can you give your 2 cents on bringing in a PC NPC from a campaign / one shot into another? Currently doing so with the old high fantasy campaign and being the long forgotten past of a new modern one. That is interesting. I think it could be fun. I like bringing characters over from old campaigns, especially if like the players had something to do with them or like know something about them. That's going to be something that's going to happen when my campaign 2 starts, because like the players will have established stuff in the world and made changes in the way things are, so that will have some noticeable impact, and I think that that'll be fun. What are my thoughts on The Witcher? I really like the show. I played a little bit of Witcher 2 and a little bit of Witcher 3, but I never really got into it. Do you think that the release of 6e will cause a reduction in new players? It could, but I also feel like they can kind of bank on how many people join the game in 5e and are looking for a little bit more, and a 6e can be like, this is our answer to that. Do you allow Unearthed Arcana in your games? Yes. Have you ever thought about doing Let's Plays? Oh, good sir. I have so many Let's Plays. Hey, what's your favorite thing about RPGs? Building a collaborative story with friends. Have a chance to read through Grim Hollow Transformations? I have not, but it's on my list of stuff to read through. Do you think it's necessary for me to run a WotC campaign for experience? Because I only have done Homebrew. No. I didn't deal with any Homebrew or any pre-written material till 5e. I always homebrewed in older editions. I didn't even know that there were pre-written adventures to run. So you don't need them. Proactively obsessive creature befriender. Not specifically, but I have had, like I said, I've come up with the Charizard. Have you ever felt the instance that you knew what next session this will be the day when your character will die? No, I've never felt that, and that's how I've been in TPKs. So, what's one piece of advice that really changed your outlook on life? I don't know. I don't know if I have a piece of advice necessarily that changed my outlook on life, but it's just things that I've learned in my life that I could possibly impart to other people. Is you know, I think people managements in most jobs, I feel like people management skills are more important than knowledge of job task skills. One of my biggest assets, I think, towards myself when it comes to my work is my ability to manage people and to manage my manager. Understanding what my manager needs to see or hear from me to keep them happy, and what I need to do, and how to talk to certain people. Whether you be more buddy buddy with people or more concise with people, really helps set that expectation, and then like you get the information out and then move on, or have a long conversation with them if that's what they want. That I think is the best advice I can give. Yeah. What's one piece that changed your outlook? Okay. It's a pre-recorded live stream. I've never done pre-recorded live streams. I do them all live and then I upload them. Advice on giving voices to NPCs. We did talk about that already a little bit earlier. Also, what makes Dragonlance so cool? I don't know. I don't know anything about Dragonlance. Just people want it. What did you learn the most with the studio build? As a non-woodworking YouTuber, would you consider doing more builds? Yeah, I'm going to build a new table, right? So I have my gaming table. I learned a lot and build. That's my second table. I had one in my old house. And then I have this one. And I've learned a lot about what we like and what we don't like. And I want to build a third table. So that's going to be a process that I'm going to collaboratively do with you folks on the internet. And that's kind of all going to be part of what's going to roll into this second campaign. We as players and DMs are going to really step up our game for that one. We're going to try to build out a better overlay and ways to deal with stuff, as well as a new table, and try to get things really going on that one. So, have I ever ran a campaign where everyone is the same class? No, but I am interested. I want to publish on DM's Guild. What kind of content do you think will do well? Player content will always do better on the DM's Guild. Huge fan from Brazil. A more realistic witch, a pagan like Circe in the Greek mythology, or Salem witches would come closer to warlock, wizard, cleric, or druid. I think a traditional witch, you could definitely tap into druid for that, for sure. I don't think wizard really falls into the more traditional witch. Warlock as well, as if they're giving themselves up to like a darker power. Depends on, a lot of it can be done achieved through flavor. But I think druid, just because it's more naturalistic. Probably already talked about it. What do you think would change with 2E? I think it'll be more loosey-goosey, like stuff we've seen, customizing your origin. But like any of the power creep stuff we've seen with subclasses, for example, the extra spells for the sorcerer, I think that'll be kind of a standard fare from the start. How do you feel about players deciding they don't like the character? They don't like the character they like. I think you mean like changing characters. It's tricky. Do you give gold/magic items by feel? I give them by feel, yeah. Or I come up with a cool magic item and then try to find a place to put it somewhere. What are my thoughts on the use of augury, divination spells in your campaign? I just kind of let them go, let them fly and see. Commune comes up a lot. That's why I did the video on it. Legend lore hasn't come up, but that's why I made the video on it. So your D&D post, and was wondering if you could tell us about your world building process. I will get to that. I'm just going to scroll. We're almost caught up on chat. So, do I have any tips for convincing friends to play D&D? I don't think it should be that hard to convince people. Like, hey man, do you want to hang out and spend some time, have some food, maybe a couple of drinks, and play around and tell a fun story together? Like, if people aren't interested, I don't like. It should, in my mind, it should be something people want to do. What's my favorite character moment in D&D 5e? I've definitely had some cool ones of like soloing monsters as a paladin. Jumping on the back of a dragon and bringing it down to the ground was pretty cool. I feel like many players would feel dejected by a move to 6e without some sort of... They did say if they ever made a 6e, it would be backwards compatible. So I don't know how that'll work, but that's something they have said. What is the most fun character you've played so far? I'm really digging my my Whispers Bard in our Evil campaign. And I really liked Lagwin, my Blade Singer, who was basically a Jedi in my Rod of Seven Parts campaign. I'm having a hard time balancing all my players' backstory arcs. There's 7 of them. Yeah, that's tricky. The more characters you have to build into stories, the harder it is. At what level would you give the Bloodwell Vial or one of those magic shards to a sorcerer? Well, I'd say at what level would you give a player a +1 sword? Because it's relatively similar in some aspects. I will start DMing after a month, but all my player party, including my first-timers. Can you give me some tips or what campaign I should run? Lost Mines of Phandelver, the original starter set, is one that everybody seems to like. I do as well. And I would say just be honest with your players that you're all learning. You know, like, hey, we might stumble a little bit, but we'll get there eventually. What do you do when players act completely out of their alignment? I just kind of toss alignment out. Alignment doesn't really have a place in 5e in my mind. A lot of people honestly, I think alignment was a holdover from old editions in some aspects, like some other stuff, and they just kept it because they thought they had to. The fact that they removed it from monsters completely, I would remove it from players too. And there's nothing gated behind alignment except for a few magic items, and I'm pretty sure that's because those magic items also came out when they were first designed. So those magic items had alignment things associated with them. But for the most part, alignment doesn't do anything. It was important in older editions because certain spells couldn't be cast by, certain damaging spells couldn't be cast by evil characters, and certain healing spells couldn't be cast, or certain damaging spells couldn't be cast by good characters, and certain healing spells couldn't be cast by evil characters. There were things like if it had the evil tag on it, good characters couldn't cast it. There was a reason why there was alignment and things like that. And that's not... Even with Law and Chaos was a thing too. And everybody can cast everything, morally questionable or not. Your lawful good cleric can cast Animate Dead and have zombies coming around with them. In theory, there's nothing wrong with that. There might be roleplay and storyline mechanics to go along, that you might have, stuff with that. But I think it should probably be left on the cutting room floor and just I don't like restricting people to their alignment. I just kind of let them do what they need to do. How would you go about running a successful evil campaign? Well, we have 30 some odd episodes of an evil campaign that we are currently still playing. So you can watch that for some examples. How do you think subclass variants would go? We saw the class variants in Tasha's and the generic subclasses. Do you think we're going to move towards subclass variants anytime soon? It's possible. Any luck getting one of those fancy jingles for a news alert? Someone has reached out and sent me a jingle, and they're working on actually an animation. I'm not paying. This was just completely a viewer and a fan suggesting it. The jingle is I gotta give him some feedback. It's good. It's just 9 seconds, and I think that's too long. Do you think they'll do with race just the way they did with alignment? I thought they were going to do that, but then they started introducing new races. So I think as long as they keep them kind of generic the way they are, where you can change ability scores and stuff, I think that'll stay the same. Would I like to see a true psionicist class? I don't love psionics. People love it. We'll see what WebDM does with their psion class. Thoughts on letting spellcaster PCs make their own spells? I think it's great. I love letting spellcasters make their own spells. I think it really helps entreat them to the world and make them feel like something that's growing and part of a larger world. Do I do anything as a DM, story-wise, mechanic-wise, with Bonsai Deal's flaws? It's more for the players. I try to tap into it occasionally, but I'm pretty bad about that. How often do background features come up in your games? Almost not at all. Unless it's one of the ones that's like, we can find food in the wilderness, then it seems to come up. Any help to talk to players that don't really roleplay and just I attack in combat and get quiet the rest of the game, and then just talk when someone directs them to? It's tricky, right? You got to talk to your players and set the expectations of what they want. If that's all they want, then, you know, either you'll have to work around it or not. And I don't also necessarily love super descriptive combat stuff because it slows combat down. If I have to sit there and do like a Matt Mercer level description of every single attack that's made, combat's going to take forever. Combat already takes a long time. What is one of the most controversial opinions on any topic? Well, that's kind of, I don't know. How would you utilize the Green Flame Blade cantrip for a character build? You know, I guess, I mean, I did one with Booming Blade. There's definitely more use for Booming Blade than there's for Green Flame Blade. If you could build out a character that could add damage to those kind of cantrips, maybe a cleric, if you could get access to it through maybe Arcana Cleric. Someone that could have elemental adept, so they could reroll fire damage and treat ones as twos. If I had to make one race a core race, dwarf, elf, gnome, what would I make common? I like kobolds, so that's what I would make. Combining Lost Minds of Phandelver with the Essentials kit? Yeah, it's definitely possible and doable. I think it's a good idea if you're looking for a thought exercise for sure. How would one make a spell list while keeping it balanced? There is a chart in the DMG for making spells. I might make a video on that. I don't know how useful it is. I haven't really read through it in a long time, but it does exist. If you would create a domain of dread for yourself as Dark Lord, what would it be? Oh, my personal domain of dread if I'm the Dark Lord? Oh man. That's probably different. If I was gonna make a domain of dread where I was the Dark Lord, I would probably make it like the domain of dread of like dad disappointment. You know what I mean? Like that's the kind of overarching theme of like that. Well, no, I'm not mad at you. I'm just disappointed. So everyone has that feeling of existential dread that they're disappointing someone that they care about. And that's the purveying theme across the entire domain of dread. So like nothing is like super fundamentally wrong or evil about the domain. It's just you're in this constant fear that you'll never be good enough and you'll never live up to the standards set out for you. So everyone is just kind of kept in line by their sheer just feelings of being disappointed or being a disappointment. Do you think they'll bring back the Mystic Thurge? Well, they tried it with the Theurgy Wizard and it didn't go over well. So I don't think, or it didn't make it to final edits, so I don't think they will. My characters at my table jumped on the big baddie and tried to smite choke him. Is there a way to smite grapple? Well, grapple doesn't do attacks, so he could grab him and then punch him or stab him with a dagger or something, but there is no way to, you have to deal damage with a weapon to smite. Favorite color is orange. I have been the forever DM, but one of my friends is finally DMing, and I'm going to be a Chronergy Wizard. Yeah, I mean, there's whatever you think is going to be the most fun for you. Chronergy Wizard's pretty cool, so. Probably a domain where he forces everyone to read the rules so he doesn't have to. The domain of dread is disappointment, yeah. How balanced do you think feats are in general in 5e? Feats are all over the place. Some are like super amazing, and then some are utter garbage. And it bothers me. Do you remember the Geomancer from 5e or the Anti-Magic Barbarian? Yes, I do remember the Geomancer very well, actually. If I was going to build my own domain of dread, which I am planning to do as part of the finale of the Ravenloft coverage, it would be all focused on Fear of the Dark. That would be, the domain would pretty much be in constant darkness, and anywhere where you were in darkness, things could come for you in the darkness. So keeping sources of light up constantly, making sure someone stays awake to recast spells that cast light or have fires going or things like that, that would be critical, because I think that fundamental fear of the dark is terrifying, and I think that that would make an excellent domain of dread. So, what do you think is the best and worst feat for 5e? One of the worst feats is gotta be either like durable. I think is what it is. Let me pull it up over here. Or I think one of the best feats are. I think I like Aberrant Dragon Mark a lot, but I think some of the best ones are probably like Sharpshooter, Great Weapon Fighter, Elven Accuracy is really good. Yeah, Durable, I think, is probably the worst. +1 con, when you roll a hit die to regain hit points, the minimum number of hit points you gain from the roll equals twice your Constitution modifier. That is probably one of the worst feats. Oh, no, wait. No, not Durable. Weapon Master. Weapon Master is the worst feat. Gain +1 strength or dexterity, and then choose proficiency with 4 weapons, and you get proficiency with those. That's the worst one. And news is always 5 years out of date by the time it reaches the Domain of Dread, and that's how the Dark Lord punished it. What do you think about the Brute Fighter? Yeah, I thought the Brute Fighter was okay. It was just basically Champion Fighter, but focused on damage rather than attack. How do you find the time to play D&D and make so much content? I play D&D once a week, and that's it. I play it on Tuesday nights at 9 p.m., and I stream it on Twitch. That's what I do. Is there any homebrew rules you thought of since your top 10 D&D homebrew rules video? Not too much. I'm working on resurrection rules and death saving throw rules. How old were you for your first game? I was 17 years old, and it was D&D 3.5. What do you think of a homebrew where the race prevents you from dump statting favorite abilities below 10 instead of giving a fixed bonus? Huh, that's interesting. The Doctor Who episode where these microscopic monsters that live in the dark, kind of like tiny piranhas. Yeah, I think I remember that episode. Thoughts on introducing a high-level villain early in the campaign to set up a long-term enemy? I think that that's great if you can do that, foreshadow the enemy early, and then have them be like ever-present. That kind of is what happened with our Season 1 of our Curse of Strahd campaign. We met Strahd very early on, and we had this vendetta against him until we ultimately TPK'd. Thoughts on I did this recently, and one of my players had an issue. Yeah, the Kobayashi Maru kind of situation where it's an unwinnable encounter. Nobody likes that, right? The counter that you can't win. So it's hard to balance, for sure. But I do like the concept of introducing it early. What's your all-time favorite game to play? Well, man, that's hard. I mean, my favorite, like, D&D is a great game because it's always so variable compared to, like, video games, but I love me some Ocarina of Time, you know? How did I end up in my current day job? Just a series of events. I was a consultant for a while. I got a job consulting at the company that I'm at, and then they eventually hired me away from the consulting company. We got Warcaster and Metamagic Adject for my Sorcerer. Any good feats you take for a Sorcerer? It depends on what kind of magic or damage you do. If Elemental Adept, if you can sneak it in there, is not a bad one if you do a specific type of damage. Do you think Artificers can fit with the setting? F with the setting if it's too hard fantasy. I don't think so. But you can always outlaw it if you think so in your game. What's my favorite subclass, official or UA? It's Oath of the Ancients Paladin. I just wish they had a better Channel Divinity, but I do like Oath of the Ancients Paladin a lot. I actually thought of bringing back the old resurrection system check, but instead of dead characters permadeathing, they come back as reborn. Interesting. What's my favorite 3.5e book? It's a toss-up between like the Draconomicon and the Magic Item Compendium. If you had the opportunity to run your ideal TPK, would you run it? If I had my opportunity, well, I ran one. It's on the channel. You can find it. It was not planned. It was not ideal, but I did run one. They got killed by snakes. 12 snakes killed the whole party. What are my thoughts on chaotic evil characters in a party? It depends on the party, right? If they're all evil, then it doesn't matter. If they're not, then that's a little hard to handle. Favorite superhero is Spider-Man. Do you think hiding death saves is good to make falling to 0 more tense? You know, I thought it was good, and then I brought that up to my players Tuesday, and they were like vehemently against it. Which I was a little surprised. I thought they would be a little more chill with that concept, but I guess not. Chris Lewis, I've been begging Jordan to bring it back. We've talked a little bit about it, but it hasn't gone anywhere. Also, what do you think about feats being given out as rewards for in-game? Well, I guess that must be for, maybe that's for Twitch. I don't know. Anyway, feats given out as a reward for in-game activity, also way ahead of you on the Elemental Adept. Yeah, there you go. If you could only use one, would it be Tasha's Cauldron of Everything or Xanathar's Guide to Everything? I think probably Xanathar's, just because of the more spells. How do you keep yourself from fudging rolls to help versus killing them? I fudge rolls a lot, because I roll pretty hot. My players know I roll a ton of 20s. So when it gets super tense, I just roll in front of them. I take the screen back and I roll it open, and just the rolls fall how they fall. Players just got TPK'd by a bunch of Vine Blights. It's my favorite class to multi-class into. Depends on what I'm doing. The classic 2 levels of fighter for Action Surge is always solid. 1 level of rogue for expertise into skills is also nice. Thank you, Jade Moon. I wanted to show, because some people were asking about this, and I tried finding that thing about wealth by level, and I just... Oh, wait, is it under tiers of play? Is that where it is? Ah, I found it. Okay. So some of you had asked earlier on, what do you think about races inherently good or evil? I don't know. I don't really have an opinion on the inherently good or evil races. Do I like the idea of wild magic as an environmental effect? Yes, very much so. So this is something that I was trying to tell people. Oh boy. Hang on. Let's go to that. That did not do what it was supposed to do. Capturing the wrong display. There we go. Fix that real quick. All right. So this is what I was talking about right here. This is the starting equipment for 5e. So in a high magic campaign, according to the Dungeon Master's Guide, a level 17th to 20th character should have 20,000 gold plus 1d10 times 250 gold pieces, 3 uncommon magic items, 2 rare items, and 1 very rare magic item. Now, I'm pretty sure even in the pre-written campaigns, most characters will probably have more than this by the time they reach 17th to 20th level if they got that high. But this is the only thing we have. And reminder, this came out super early in D&D's life cycle. This is in the DMG about how to do magic items and gold in campaigns if you're starting at higher than first level. Which is not well balanced, I don't think, at all. So, there's that. My greatest D&D pet peeve probably is just when my players don't pay attention and I have to repeat myself, which happens all the time. Where I'll tell a player, I'll start telling or describing something to a player who just like checks out, and then they later ask me a question that was what I literally just explained, and I have to do it again. That bothers me to no end. How would I balance a time-stealing monster that can use 3 legendary actions to steal a round of combat from players? I think that I might not let it do it every turn, because that could get a little crazy from the players, I think. I'm DMing most people in the junior company, only players, to improve relationships since no one can see each other in the pandemic. Any advice? Probably got to do theater of the mind, right? Just try to keep things quick and concise and be descriptive if you're playing all over the internet. What ability score do I consider to be the most important? Either dexterity or wisdom. Yeah, Oath of the Ancients. That's how I basically played my paladin. He had an Outlander background, and he was an Oath of the Ancients paladin. He was a half elf. I basically made him a ranger. Actually, some people in my party thought my character was a ranger, but I was a paladin. My favorite dragon, silver dragon. Unless we're talking expanded other dragons, then it would be a song dragon. Strength marshals or dex marshals? I like strength marshals, but dex marshals are the clear winner because of the usefulness of dexterity. I'd be interesting to see your take on a more up-to-date gold. Yeah, I might make something like that. We'll add a gold. We'll add this table to the list here. Besides rolling for stats, what standard array would you like to use? I use the following: 17, 15, 13, 12, 10, 8. That's not bad. I don't mind that. How do you go about adding magic items in your game? Do you hand-pick them? Sometimes I use random tables, but I like to hand-pick them mostly because I like to design magic items. My favorite background, probably also Outlander, just because I have a very naturey background myself. Grew up in the woods all the time, gun hunting and fishing and stuff like that. And it also lets you kind of replicate what a ranger could be without having to be one. Which book do you think the owl folk race will be in? I want to say Wild Beyond the Witchlight, but it's on the front cover of Strixhaven, so it's hard to say. High magic, definitely. What gem dragon would you like to see the most in 5e? Amethyst? I guess. What is your favorite undead monster? The Bone Claw. Big fan of the Bone Claw. And I wanted to just go look something up because some people were asking about, like, do I do Let's Plays or have I ever thought about doing that? And I just want to showcase a couple things that people don't seem to know about the channel. So let's go and do that real quick. Hang on. And then we'll do one other thing. I feel like every so often I just need to make a video about this because people don't know. I actually don't like hiking, if I'm being honest, because I always said I prefer hunting because it's hiking with a purpose. It's a Tedism. If you could invent a new subclass, what would the basic theme be of that subclass and why? A luck domain cleric, a dragon patron, warlock. Those would be the two big ones. What do you think about the owl folk? Oh yeah, I think I answered that. Season 11 of Adventures League would be Feywild based, Scout Rogue for same. And how about the Adventures in the Forgotten Realms Magic the Gathering card set? They don't play Magic, so I can't really comment on it, but it seems cool. Do I think I think the October book will be dragon based? Will it be Dragon Lance? I don't know. Do you think in general Forgotten Realms lack a really cool feature of its pantheons IRL, which is trees and descendancy? Forgotten Realms pantheon is all over the place, man. There's like 50 plus deities or more. It's a little crazy. I buffed the Ranger class by making the Beastmaster part of the base class and making them prepared casters. I in my Ranger fix, which I have yet to release, I made Animal Companions part of the base class as well. So I think that's a good idea. From Van Riegen's Guide to Ravenloft, what is your favorite personality, ideal, bond, and troll from the horror characteristics? I don't remember them at the top of my head, so I'd have to go look. What classless race combos do you think are too strong? I don't think there's anything that's too strong. Okay, so this is what I wanted to show you guys. Where was I? Sorry. Depends on the type of swallow we're talking about. If you have ever played a homebrew character, what was your most wacky character? I've never really played a truly homebrew character, like a homebrew racer class. I have not. I have some that I'd like to try, though. What real-world historical setting, not European, would you like to be adapted into D&D? I think ancient Egypt could be cool. I'm trying to work with a player who's playing a Tempest Cleric Aasimar. What would an Aasimar be doing in Waterdeep? I mean, really, whatever their angelic guide or whatever told them to do, I think, right? If there's someone thinking about being a dungeon master, do a little research, consume some content. Check out the Sly Flourish's Lazy Dungeon Master. If you want to take it on the easier side, if you want to go super in depth on the preparation, check out Matt Colville's Running the Game. What do you think about creating Zelda-style multiple-stage monsters with creative weaknesses? That's kind of the concept of the mythic actions for the mythic monsters introduced in Mythic Odysseys of Theros. So, take a look at that. What anime show is your favorite, and are you currently watching any shows? My favorite anime? Rurouni Kenshin, I think, is probably my favorite anime. Mr. Krabs, it's Krusty Krab pizza on my shirt. That's what that is. It's the pizza for you and me. Other animes that I like, because I'm old school, right? So I grew up with like Toonami and stuff. So animes that I like are Dragon Ball Z, Sailor Moon, Yu Yu Hakusho. But I also like Naruto, Fairy Tail. You know, those are ones that I watched the first season of Attack on Titan. Thought that was pretty cool. Yeah, I do remember watching Cowboy Bebop on Adult Swim late at night. Let's see. I'm planning on running a D&D Wild West sort of game. Any tips? Just be careful how you manage the gunplay, because that's going to be important in a Wild West campaign. What do I think about creating a Link-style Ranger subclass? I think Link's more of a fighter than a Ranger, honestly. I don't think they're going to create a new class, but they might. Have you seen the anime Overlord? I don't believe so. No. My friend and I are working on a British colonial India setting. Any advice in how you make your own setting based on a real-world history? I don't have anything based on real-world history, so I don't know how I would be able to use that to help you guys, unfortunately. Have I watched My Hero Academia? No, I have not, actually. And I hear everybody's talking about it, so I probably should. What video game / movie monster would you like to see made into a monster you could use for D&D 5e? Mothra. How long can you usually DM for at a time? I usually go for 2 hours. I'd like to go longer. I've DM'd for 6 to 8 hours before, but I usually go for about 3 to 4. I don't think Illusion Magic has subdivisions, so I don't know where you heard that. What's your opinion on the new UA background, Unwilling Time Traveler? Which UA background was that? I don't know if I saw that. Goblin Slayer. People have said that that's one that I would like. How do you feel about putting the Relentless Executioner in Curse of Strahd? I don't think it's a bad idea. Yeah, the mythic monster, Dullahan, that's true, is the 4th mythic monster. All right. So people brought up about would I ever do actual plays. I want to show you guys a couple things. Okay. So here's the Nerd Immersion YouTube page. Go to playlists, right? That's important. And there's a ton of playlists here, but I want to show you guys some stuff, okay? You can go down, you can see really old school stuff from back in the day when I used to do cosplay and like, here's some here's video game playthroughs and things. There's my cooking show, my cosplay cooking show that my wife and I did. 59 episodes of a Guild Wars 1 Let's Play, some collector's unboxings, Pokemon. I used to play Pokemon on Wednesdays. Anyway, where am I going? Lost Minds of Phandelver. right? This is my original Homebrew campaign. This was really fun. This is me at my best, I would say, when I was doing a Homebrew Faerunian setting, right here. Here's an entire playthrough of Out of the Abyss. Here's a 24-hour Extra Life live stream. Here's an entire playthrough of Horde of the Dragon Queen. Here's Season 1 of Curse of Strahd. Here's Season 2 of Curse of Strahd. Storm King's Thunder. Tomb of Annihilation. Princes of the Apocalypse. 2017 24-hour live stream. Here's my Homebrew campaign, at least the first. So there's two things, right? For my Homebrew campaign, there's the first 50 episodes here. For our Evil campaign, the first 16 episodes are here. And for our Rise of Tiamat campaign, the first 28 episodes are here. Then, if you go over to our second channel, when I decided to break out all of the gameplay content, we have Nerd Immersion Plays. If you go to the playlists, you can see here, we have the remaining, there's some recaps, and then the remaining all current episodes of my Homebrew campaign. There is all of the rest of the Rise of Tiamat campaign. There's a one-shot or a two-shot ran by one of our players, Celine. Here is the entirety of our Evil game campaign. Here's the entirety of our Rod of Seven Parts campaign. Here is a continuing adventures after the end of our Rise of Tiamat campaign. Here's a one-shot for Waterdeep that I ran, one thing. And then here is an entire 11-game, 3-hour playthrough of Baldur's Gate 3 with me and several of my friends all playing through it as our own custom characters. So, if you search Nerd Immersion Plays or look through the Nerd Immersion playlists on YouTube, there is a ton of Let's Play gaming content. And we do continue to stream every Tuesday night at 9 p.m. on Twitch. So those are all options for you to come watch live. And if you dive back through, you can see here's a 30-hour stream I did for my 30th birthday. I have some stuff from various, if you go, you can look at some of these, right, and see the old house and the old table, the old gaming table. So, well, they get away with AL's PHB +1 rule with the new season. They got rid of it. So, I haven't seen the Elden Ring trailer, but I've heard good things about it. Got a new school of magic. Yeah, Chronomancy would have been the one I would have added, but have you seen Dungeon Coach's level 0 rules? I have not, but I am going to be working with Dungeon Coach on some stuff in the near future, so. Have any good feat ideas? Like you said, most are either underpowered. I used to have some, but I haven't come up with any good feats at the moment, so. This feels weird to have a witch character representing a book with no witch subclass. Yeah. Well, I think their thought process is you can just flavor any, like a sorcerer or a wizard as a witch if you wanted to. I just remembered, how would you rule this? A player has a dagger and wants to jump onto the back of a monster, stabbing it and using that to hold on to it. Would you rule that as a grapple? You could. There are rules for climbing onto a larger creature in the Dungeon Master's Guide. Jade Moon, sure, throw it out there. Go for it. You think they will bring back prestige classes? No, they tried it as an Unearthed Arcana. I did a video on it. I don't think they're going to do it. Bring it back. Do you think healing spells should be in the evocation school? They are. Most healing spells are evocation. Like, I'm pretty sure if I were to go look up Cure Wounds, I'm pretty sure Cure Wounds is an evocation spell. Are you asking me, do I think they should be and that they should be somewhere else? No, I think they're fine as evocation. You have homebrew stuff on D&D Beyond? Yeah, I do actually have some homebrew stuff on D&D Beyond. Oh, yeah, I gotcha. So, I don't know where else I would put healing magic. Maybe abjuration. All right, so what would you do to make the Mystic Fair class? I think you got to scrap it and start over. I don't think there's no official rules, I don't think, for what you get for being a huge-sized creature. Yeah, a couple of the healing spells are necromancy. That's true. Do you think the magic schools are unbalanced? I don't really think the magic schools matter too much outside of whether or not you have the ability to copy them into your spellbook faster. It is 4:51 a.m. currently. That's just how I do my live streams. So, let's see. Let's go browse. I don't know. Let's try this. Homebrew. Okay. So somebody asked about homebrew stuff of mine on D&D Beyond. So if you go there and you go into the homebrew section and you're browsing it, you should, I think. So I don't know what I have here. So let's try magic items. Let's try spells. View homebrew spells. Okay. And if you go here to the advanced filters and then type author, and you type in nerd immersion, it usually takes a little while for things to show up here. It's very annoying how long this takes. You can click nerd immersion right here, filter spells, and then spells that I've made are here that you can view, right? And then you can do the same thing with magic items or subclasses. So I think I have, if you go to view created subclasses, author, nerd immersion. We'll see. I don't know why it takes so long, but nerd immersion, filter. My gravity domain cleric is here. So it's an example for you. So you can play around with that, see what you can find. You read the Abhors and novels? I have not. Do you think that WotC is becoming more and more conservative in terms of power level for new classes? No, I feel like they're going hard the other way. Look at the sorcerers. If I had anyone's superpower, what would I choose? Probably teleportation. What do you think about the lack of fey creatures? I think it's a travesty. I think they really need to add... Maybe they will add more fey creatures in Wild Beyond the Witchlight. Oh, Jade Moon, you said a race is goblin. I missed wild magic, barbarian, dex focused. It's an interesting concept, but you won't really be able to manipulate or rely on reckless attack or damage from your rage damage, because those are all strength based. Have I tried or been in a campaign with a divination halfling wizard with the lucky feat? Yes, I have, actually. I ran a game where we had a divination wizard halfling with a lucky feat. What characters / concepts have you taken from other sources and surprised your party with? We had a predator cause a TPK, or not a TPK, had a predator kill a party member. I think that might be listed under one of my homebrew monsters, actually. We had a predator kill one of the party members. It was something the chat donated to the game. Rope 6 says you can use up to 60 feet of rope. Can a player just use like a half-inch rope along with like a flying speed to make it hard to get cover? I'm not sure. What's your favorite cleric? I think that's domain. I'd like a cleric romaine, like a lettuce cleric. Tempest cleric is my favorite domain. Do you think giving artificers vanilla spellcasting was a lazy design? A little bit. Have you ever played in the world of Athos? I have not played anything Dark Sun, no. What do I think of the old Icewind Dale PC game? I played it in 2005, so it was obviously way after it was like its prime. Swords on the Wall are from GameStop. They are Driz replica things from GameStop. Yeah, I have a bunch of homebrew stuff that isn't public, but because I tried and they just wouldn't let me. I like the Strixhaven UA. I have not seen the Elden Ring trailer. What's the most powerful one of your D&D characters? What's the most powerful they have become? I mean, my paladin got pretty nutty. Just because I roll pretty well, so I usually roll a lot of 20s. So high level paladin with lots of smite damage does a ton. You just murder single shot like some high level characters or high level creatures. I think Strixhaven will be open to make DM's Guild content when it comes out. I can ask. I can see if I can find that out for you. I don't know if I'll be able to tell you till that becomes true, but I'll let you know. What was your review of the Oath of Storm Paladin from the Middle Finger of Vecna? You had said you'd review it a couple months back. Did I say that? I mean, I might have. I don't think I did. Maybe I will. What do you think about a Bard College themed around games? I think it could be very fun. Goblins have, yeah, the racial extra damage for goblins is good. But again, you still wouldn't have rage damage or reckless attack because it's strength based. Death Domain Cleric is garbage, and Grave Domain is what Death Domain should have been. What is your favorite featured domain of Dread and why? I did an entire top 10 on the ones I think should be better. So I would look at those. Seer 1313 is definitely one of them. I like the Vague Agency a lot too. Any tips for creating short one-off players? New to short one-off for players new to D&D based on the challenges of the pandemic. Is this in person or online? There's a ton of one-shots though, so I wouldn't go nuts about trying to write your own if you don't want to. You can probably find something. What's true? What do you think about feels missing class-wise? I think, well, Ranger obviously needs to be reworked. Necromancer. Forge Domain is good. Forge Domain is what War Domain should have been. It's basically the new War Domain, in my opinion. Can a Spiritual Hammer, old school spell, count as a spiritual weapon? I don't see why not. Your favorite 5e creature to kill? Dragons. Hexblood is kind of bound with hags, right? What other creatures would be cool? Yeah, it is really too much bound to hags, in my opinion, honestly. There's not a lot of fey creatures to use, though. Do you think they should release more NPC classes like Death Domain? I think it's too late in the game now, honestly. I also think Oathbreaker Paladin's kind of meh. If I had to pick my favorite monster to run, what would it be? Is there any monster that you find yourself using a lot? No, I like running Beholders and Mind Flayers because they can usually mess a party up. I like Alhoons too, like the Undead or Elithaliches. Those are pretty cool. No, but I don't usually have I also pull from a lot of other stuff, right? Like I have Monster Manual Expanded 1 and 2. I have both Tome of Beasts and Creature Codex, so I try to pull from a large variety of monsters to keep my players on their toes. How do you build your world? How do you organize everything? Not well is the answer to that. In a Google Drive folder, and I wish I did more, honestly. Favorite Paladin spell? Find Steed. Or Find Greater Steed. I have heard of Birthright. Have you ever played Baldur's Gate 3? Oh, you just missed it. You want to know about Baldur's Gate 3? Check out my secondary channel, Nerd Immersion Plays, where you can watch an entire playlist of me playing through Baldur's Gate 3, Patch 3 version of Baldur's Gate 3, with my friends in a party full of 4 people all playing through the game together. So there you go. What D&D class gives you the most trouble to balance against? I would say probably Wizard, just because of the variability. What do you think your most fun moment in D&D was as a player and a DM? So as a player, I think it was probably in my more recent Evil campaign when I kind of like soloed a couple of like kidnapping missions. Those are pretty cool. And as a DM, probably introducing the character of Eddie to my original Homebrew campaign. He sounds like Christopher Walken, and watching the look on the players' faces when I introduced that accent was pretty huge. Also, would you classify Thor from the comics as a paladin or barbaric? Thor from the comics? There's a lot of comics too, right? So which comic? I think you could go either way. What is my favorite creature to befriend? Bears. Have I ever read the Sword Mage Homebrew? I have not. Any real-world experience or encounter you use to fuel your DMing at the table? No, but if there is something I can use, I will try to adapt it. That's my favorite creature type. And what's my favorite creature from that category? That's hard to say. Because there's so many monstrosities. I like Bone Claws from the Undead. Would it be a good idea for WotC to create a more evil-themed subclasses? I don't think they will, because that's not a large portion of the game. Do I think high-level D&D can be sensibly balanced? You mean like 10 to 20 or like 20 plus? What would be your favorite character to play? Least favorite character to play? Oh. A gnome ranger? Or like a Goliath ranger? Anything ranger, really. Do you allow spells reduce and catapult be used together to launch a 40-pound rock? I still think the damage from catapult would be standard, though. What's your opinion about the Mind Witness monster? I like Mind Witnesses. I like all the funky, weird Beholder Mind Flayer stuff. I love it. How is too far when it comes to powerful builds in your games? Moon Druid, Bear Barbarian, Tempest Cleric, Wizard. I'll find a way to take you down a peg. Go nuts. Do whatever you want. What is your Oath of the Ancients Paladin is the best subclass in the game, and it's my favorite. Coke or Pepsi? I'm not really a cola guy. If I'm gonna have like a caramel colored, I'm more Dr. Pepper. But I'm a gamer, right? So Mountain Dew all the way. What is the most BS encounter you've ever run? Well, I killed my party with some snakes on an island. So, that was a BS encounter. Do you think high-level D&D can be sensibly balanced? I think it can be, but it needs help to balance. Any races I think need a rework? I mean, I've already done one on the Kobold and the Dragonborn. I think all of the races that gave spells in earlier versions of 5e that don't have the ruling that says you can now cast these spells if you have spell slots, I think those all need to be reworked. Will Dragonlance content be old, new? Or I think it'll be a new timeline. Oh, Half-Sword, thank you for the super chat. How do you go about making battle maps and combat encounters? Is there a specific method you use? No, I don't actually have a specific method for making battle maps. If I'm doing it with terrain, I'm limited, like with Gorin Forge or something else, I'm limited with what I actually have on hand. But I like to do interesting encounters with unique terrain, because I think the environment is something that often gets underused. So environmental effects, I think, are pretty fun. What's the most interesting way you've improved a vanilla monster? Flail Snail with a wild magic feature. I'm trying to think. I've definitely done some interesting ones. Damn. Least favorite monster to fight is a ghost. I know I've definitely done stuff where I've like made a vanilla monster more fun, but nothing comes to mind at the moment. Would you go relatively easy on a player who hasn't have an optimized character due to not? I would talk to them, and I wouldn't try to like shut down a player who's like not optimized, but I'm still gonna make the encounter challenging. And if they need to rework stuff with their character after the fact, we could talk. Do you think race has become more cosmetic choice? Yes and no. I think Link from Zelda is a paladin of the Ancients or a fighter? He's a fighter. Huh, so funnily enough, remember how we were talking about stuff I used to do? So if we go back to my YouTube and we dive back into the annals of Nerd Immersion history, you can see, where is it? I used to do a show that I used to stream every week called It Builds Character, where I used to do many, many, many years ago, long before most people on the internet that are doing character builds of characters. I did them long ago. where I would build pop culture characters in D&D. You can see I've done a bunch here from back in the day, and at some point in here was Link. So I built Link right here. You can watch me do that with the chat. I used to build it live with the Twitch chat. We used to do it together, and you can see I've done a handful of things here and there. A bunch of different characters, and so on. I eventually stopped. I even built one of these, Mr. Wednesday. I built live at Gen Con with Jordan. That was pretty cool. What do you think of having a wizard in your party who loves dragons and tries to befriend them? I think it could be fun as long as it doesn't get too annoying. In 5, you could apply a change to weapons to make them more varied. I think you had to do something because weapons are they get a little boring after a while. How powerful is the Artificer's ability to tune to any 6 magical items in Tier 4 AL? I don't know. I haven't really gotten to that point where I've had that ability. Why did you have a Q&A? Well, listen, it's 5 a.m. for me, so I got no answers for you. I like Life Transference, but I think other healing spells outclass Life Transference quite a bit. I think the Dragonborn UA is a low-key secret draconian player stats. It could be, but I don't think so. If Flail Snail smites, that would be horrible, but amazing. What 1 or 2 key homebrew things would you suggest or change for a Curse of Strahd campaign being run by 5 players? I would highly recommend you look at Curse of Strahd Reloaded. It's free on Reddit. Search it, look into it, read that stuff. It's really good. You could probably use that and make your Curse of Strahd game immensely better. Would you be into building characters again using D&D Beyond? So, funnily enough, I have. Towards the end of that character building series, I was building them on D&D Beyond. Randomizing spells could be funky. I don't think I'd want to do it all the time, but I think that could be a fun thing, like in the Feywild, your spells are randomized. So, if we were to go back to D&D Beyond, and go to my characters, come over here real quick, I'll show you. If you were to scroll down in my D&D Beyond characters, you'll see some that you'll recognize here if we go down. Where are we? Oh, you know what? I might have deleted them. I think I did. Oh, no, wait, here's... Okay, so here's Wargreymon, here's Yusuke, Kirito, Onua. I guess I'm... Oh, no, here's Gilgamesh. Here's Red, the Pokemon trainer. Beowulf. So I do have a handful of them built here in D&D Beyond. So... Most random death I've seen a PC die to? Well, the snakes were a good one. When our druid caused a TPK at the end of our first season of Curse of Strahd by getting us all killed. That was kind of annoying. What was the most random death? Oh, that was that. What's the one class you wish they brought in from previous editions? Dragon Shaman or Dragon Fire Adept, for sure. Would you say that D&D would benefit from adding more Celestials and Fae? Yes, it would. I think it might be fun to play a wizard that gets his new spells at random. It could definitely be good, but I think I'd get bored of it after a while. But for a little while, as long as I knew it had a finite end to it, I think it could be fun. How much interest would you have in a series about balancing older 5e content to be in line with the power creep? I'm down. What do you think about Yuan-Ti as major villains? They definitely could be. You could do like a snake cult and stuff. There was a whole book, I think, called like Serpent something. There's a serpent like kind or something book in 3.5 for Forgotten Realms. I would look into that, and you might be able to glean some stuff from that. Have I ever retconned an unexpected TPK? No, I haven't. Although, funnily enough, one of those happened recently. in our evil campaign. So again, the actual play content, we've covered a lot of stuff. What do you think about fights in Curse of Strahd? I am DMing this campaign, and I think that's a lot of the encounter is balanced bad. Yeah, well, so our first campaign, first season of Curse of Strahd that ended in the TPK, that was by the book. Our second campaign, second season in Curse of Strahd was pretty much off book for most of it. But again, I would check out Curse of Strahd Reloaded. A lot of that fixes a lot of the issues. Oh, something I did want to show you guys that I thought was interesting. Because someone had asked earlier on about woodworking and stuff I would do. So I wanted to show something because I had talked about how we'd had our old table, and I wanted to show some pictures showing or like a video. I'll just put it on mute of like the old gaming table I had compared to you've seen the new one that I have. At least I think you have, or I can show you. And then I'm gonna be building a new one. So, build Loki on D&D Beyond for a streamer video. I have not done Loki. I just don't think I'm in a good space to be doing character builds just because so many other people are doing it. I'm sure by the time you say this, Tulak the Barbarian already has it. Have I had to humble the players? Well, again, I'd say that time when I accidentally TPK'd them with snakes. That was pretty humbling. They weren't normal snakes. I had found like a stat block for an Arbok from Pokemon. Like it has the hoods and glare and like spits acid. And I had 12 of those in an island full of long grass, and the party got murdered by them. Worst spell in 5e is Find Traps. What monster / group of monsters do you think needs more lore? All of them, honestly. So here, I'll show you guys this real quick, just to show you what our table. I'll mute it, but just to show you what the old gaming table used to look like. So you can see I had built this table much higher up, and I had like higher sitting stools, and I was much more focused. This is in my old basement, by the way. This is the old area where I used to sit and make videos and stuff like that. So, but yeah, when we used to stream there, and we had like our microphone was attached to the table, so every time you knock the table, you'd hear it. But yeah, this was the old setup we used to use, and we had the table. I had like standing like bar high top seats. So anyway, this was the old table. And if we were to go back and I were to go over here, I could show you somewhere where the new table is. Just to kind of do a quick showcase of that, if I were to find it. Maybe. Here we go. So transition to the new basement down here somewhere. So again, you won't really be able to see it too much because, this is, well, again, you can see how it started and then it's gotten significantly better as time has gone on. If we were to jump over to this one, I can show you real quick and then I'll be done, I promise. We were to go all the way down to say here, then, oops, we gotta mute that. Then you can see if I go to the end, get a good idea, maybe. So here we are, more recently. But if I switch it here, you'll be able to see the actual whole table, what it looks like in the new setup in the basement. But this table, it's seeing its time, so it's time to retire this table and build a new one. Worst character, race, and why? Dragonborn. Best spell in 5e? Spirit Guardians or Guidance. What's the most savage trap you've used on a PC? Oh god, one of my friends. There's a video of it ending early, of a puppy trap that one of my maniacal friends designed and threw at the party in a live stream, where it was a puppy, and if you waited too long, the puppy multiplied itself, and they were trapped in a small room, and the only way, it was just awfully brutal, this trap. The only way to do it was to kill the puppy. But if you didn't, the puppy continued to multiply and multiply and multiply. And the puppies ended up filling the entire room with so many puppies that everyone suffocated to death and died. How much does rules as intended matter to DMs? It depends on the DM. It depends on what you're trying to do. What's my view on allowing a player to customize summon spells by creating variations of the creature they summon, i.e. animate dead, being tweaked to create a bone spider? I mean, other than the fact that spiders don't have bones, I'm fine with it. A while ago, you showed us 5e tools as a DM screen option. Are you able to show us your current layout? I haven't used it, so I don't. My DM screen is still like just a regular one. I don't have a good one. That I'm looking to build one, but I haven't gotten around to it. If you rolled for stats and got every stat below 12, what class would you play if you wanted to commit to the bad stats? Probably Druid, Moon Druid. Do I build my own tables? Yes. I build all of the furniture in my house, pretty much. All of the furniture in the basement. You know, this whole room was just an empty concrete room. I built the whole room in here. I built the desk that I'm sitting at. I built all of this stuff back over here. I built the gaming table, the shelves behind it. I built all the furniture out in the other room as well, the entertainment center and whatnot. Which of the current 5e compatible Kickstarters would I recommend? I think the WebDM one at the moment is the one that I have the most connection with. So the one that I have the most knowledge about as well. Spirit Guardian is also my favorite spell because you can just keep moving in and out of the enemy zone. Yep. My player is currently fighting a vampire in Skyreach Castle. Haven't run one before, but most effective ways to charm everyone. Suggestions for making an interesting battle. I let your players, I can't remember if it's part of Skyreach Castle, about there being, it depends on if they're going to attack it at night or in the daytime. If it's at night, then it's kind of free range and it's a little harder. But if they've got the thing inside during the day, I would make it so that there are like broken like boards up on the windows that your party members could try to like pull down to bring in sunlight to be able to attack the pull the vampire into. Oh, thank you, Iris. How would you set up a camp as players anticipating an ambush in a corrupted forest without access to high-level safe haven spells? If you have access to the Mold Earth spell, the cantrip, I would use it to dig a trench around your camp. And then either put your, put the 5 feet of dirt that you're moving to make the 5-foot trench either on the opposite side, so they're climbing up over it to fall into a pit, or on the inside so they have to climb up out of the pit to get over it. So you've got a ring, you could fill it with water, or if you have a lot of oil, fill it with oil, and then ready to set it on fire if you need to. If you were to be the lead designer of the next edition of D&D, what things would you add or improve? Class balance, the ranger, the sorcerer, races all being consistent or at least balanced within relation to one another. More interesting types of armor and weapons. Armor crafting, harvesting, crafting, buying and selling and trading of magic items. That stuff. Outside of Wish, if you could take one spell into reality with the goal of using it as much non-violent chaos as much... outside of Wish, if you had to take one spell into reality with the goal of causing as much non-violent chaos as possible, what would you take? Suggestion. Wizards of the Coast brings you into the office and allows you to add one thing to their new book. What is it? Official rules for buying and selling magic items with price guides. What do you think about... What do you do with retired tables? The original retired table, I gave it away to somebody in my... I also moved houses. That was my old house. And then when we were moving, we needed to get rid of the old table. So we gave it away to somebody who lived in the area who was just getting into D&D. So we gave him the table. When I retire this table, I don't know. You know, I'll have to see if I can even get it up the stairs. You know, if I can get it up the stairs and get it out easily, then maybe I'll list it and see if anybody wants to take it or give it away to somebody. If not, I'll just break the whole thing apart. Have I ever ran a Grim Jester against your players? No, I have not. I have heard of the Grim Jester, though. A good idea to TPK the party as part of a boss fight and then create a mechanism where they can resurrect themselves to continue the fight. You might, you could, but it might cheapen the experience for the players. Any news on the new TSR? I haven't even heard of it, so I'm going to say no. Control weather also could cause chaos. Have I ever made a Mjolnir-like item? I have. Storm's Herald, an axe in my homebrew campaign. It doesn't return to you, but it could be thrown, and it had some different abilities and stuff. And it leveled up with the player as time went on. So he could get, you know, more abilities, allowed him to do different lightning-based magics and stuff. And there was a barbarian who had it, but he eventually found himself an axe of the Dwarvish Lords, so he's good. Let's see. It's a D12, so it's a great axe. It does an extra D6 lightning damage. It was, at the point he had it, it was currently a +2 great axe. In addition, you could cast the homebrew spell Storm Surge from it. You could cast Chain, or you can use it to cast Lightning Bolt. And then he just got it recently to the point where he could use Call Lightning from it as well. And that was it. And it was going to get, eventually, it was going to bump up to +3 and stuff like that. I think I gave it a throwing range, like 20-60, but it didn't return. You could just throw it if you wanted to. Have they ever given the deck of many things to players? Oh my god, yes, I have. Not good. If you got sent to the world of D&D, what class and subclass would I be? I mean, realistically, I'd probably be a human, right? But maybe an elf, and I would probably be a cleric, I guess, or a paladin. A lot of people say bard, but, you know, whatever. I think it's a 0% chance that this book will be Spelljammer, honestly, unfortunately. So, let's go back over here. And let's see. Where is it? Oh, here we go. Everin number 59. This one right here. The whole episode is basically debating on what to do with the newly acquired Fates card from a deck of many things. So here you go. Between episodes 58 and 59, I gave the party a Fates card. They got a Fates card from a deck of many things. And they chose what they were going to do by rewriting the timeline. So, yeah, you'll find I've done a lot of the things that people always have questions about, like how would you handle this? And I've mostly done it. So, how long was the longest consecutive D&D session I've ever played as a player? You're probably close to like 8 to 12 hours. But like there was definitely breaks for food and like drinks and stuff in between. What's my favorite big bad evil guy, either to run or from a narrative perspective? I did a video on my power word kill barbarian. That was one of my favorites, which was just a bear barbarian that used her axe was basically a flame tongue axe, but instead of a flame tongue, it was a lightning tongue. And instead of having an axe head, the head appeared out of it sort of like a lightsaber made out of lightning. So it looked just like a walking stick or a staff. And she had a couple magic items, and she forced everybody in the town to refer to her as a wizard. And if they didn't refer to her as a wizard, she would use power word kill on them, which was the name of her axe. So the party had heard like rumors about this and how like ruthless this wizard was. And she had a cloak with like a circle of blasting and like a Cape of the Mountebank, stuff that let her do different magical things. And they went in and they cast silence on her to like shut down her spell casting. And then she just like grinned and twisted her axe handle to make the lightning tongue head appear, and then just started wailing on them as barbarian. And that was a very fun encounter. And then when they killed her, eventually, they saw that the runes carved in the side of the axe handle said power word kill. Would you allow a player to eventually get in possession of some spells that would let them transform into a dragon? Like the shape change spell, the 9th level spell? Sure. What's my favorite magical item? I definitely did I thought I did a top 10 personal favorite magic items, I think. But, probably the Sunblade. Would you allow player? Yeah, did that already. Other than the Death House and Old Bone Grinder, are there any areas that are too hard? No, I think Old Bone Grinder, because that's where we died. So, would you ever use physical props in a game? I did. I actually have a piece of. I have a friend who is a makeup artist, designed me a piece of fake skin, because one of the characters, one of the NPCs was trying to like get information on this character, and they had this like holy desiccating poison that when they stabbed something, like it basically just started to consume it, and he was trying to basically kill himself, and he had this like branded tattoo on his arm, like it was like not a tattoo, it was a brand, right? So it was like scarred, and the NPC managed to cut that skin off his arm before it was completely destroyed. And I had a friend who's a makeup artist actually make that into like a physical prop, so that I could like throw it at my players during the game. It was pretty cool. That's on my original campaign here on this channel. We are still live, David Green. We are currently live for 2 hours and 43 minutes. The adventure is 1 to 8, and we've only seen the races. What do you think will be in the Witchlight book? Maybe some spells, I hope. Maybe some magic items. If Trickery Domain Cleric cast Dimension Door through their duplicate, what would happen? That would be nothing. The duplicate would be the point at which the Dimension Door was cast, so 400 feet, 500 feet from the duplicate. Do you think an Azamar could pass as an Asgardian? If not, what race do you think? No, I think Azamar works. Is it safe to assume that looking at the way Wizards is designing their books in this edition, the following book will, the Feywild, will be the edition, and we won't get any actual setting books? I don't think it's going to be a setting book at this time. What's my favorite level 10 plus spells? Oh boy, I don't even remember. I mean, Karsus's Avatar is it's obviously like one that comes to mind, but yeah, totally. Take the power word kill barbarian. Go for it. How would you handle the character of a player who left the game being killed, then resurrected by the big bad evil guy to come back as a corrupted version of themselves as a Darth Vader-esque character? That's fine. You know, if the PC's still playing as a new character, that's cool. We've had that happen a bunch, where, you know, a character came back as like a vampire or something like that. Yeah, I don't know. I think like I said earlier, I think alignment is just kind of it's just a throwaway thing. Start a new campaign and one of the players' play style is very different from everyone else. Yeah, you gotta have a talk with your player, right? Say, everybody else wants a serious campaign, dude. I know you're having fun playing it like a comedy, but we want it to be more serious, and unfortunately, it may just not work out. If you answered this already, I apologize. Yeah, someone mentioned about above VTT. I have not used it, but people have mentioned it to me. What spells would you give the Luck Domain Cleric you were talking about? Well, it's for free on the internet, so I can show you. Hang on. I have to update my website because nerdimmersion.com is super out of date, and I need to get like a webmaster to like help me go through it. It actually might not even be secure anymore, so I don't recommend you go there. Let me see. Oh, good. Oh, my categories are all busted. Let's see. Yeah, this needs to be totally revamped. Oh, here. So here's my homebrew luck domain. Bless, Guiding Bolt, Enhance Ability, Mirror Image, Blink, Remove Curse, Death Ward, Freedom of Movement, Circle of Power, and Mislead. I might go back and change those, obviously, because new spells have been added since I made this thing. This was, like, I think, at this point when this was made, it would have been before Xanathar's Guide was out. So, there's been a lot of spells since then. What do we do? Proficiency in all gaming sets. As a bonus action, you can grant yourself or a creature you touch advantage on their next attack, roll, ability check, or saving throw. This feature has a number of wisdom modifier times per long rest. Channel Divinity, you can use the reaction to halve the damage you receive. Level 6. When a creature within 30 feet of you can use your reaction to halve the damage received. I'll give it Divine Strike with the weapons damage type. And then Fortune Favors the Bold. As a bonus action for 1 minute, incoming attack rolls against you have disadvantage once per short or long rest was what I had designed. Do I worship Bahamut? No. Timora, goddess of luck. What warlock would be a good to have an Illithid patron? What was the new one? Well, you're probably supposed to say the Great Old One as the one that's supposed to represent the aberrations, but I don't think it's a good example. You could probably, the Fathomless might be the closest, actually. Hey, yo, what is the best 5e official adventure? That's tricky. I think the newer ones are definitely better, so maybe Icewind Dale. Have I seen Wintergatten? For some reason, I have not. I'll write it down. That was old snobbish here, but why did they even bother removing alignments from the stat blocks? Don't know. Think we get another UA for Strixhaven? I don't think we will. We'll get the survey, and that's about it. Fortune's Favor on the Luck Cleric. Oh, yeah, probably. That was a newer spell, yeah. What do you think about how do you handle players making fanfic of their characters? You know what? I mean, as long as it doesn't impact the game, go to town, right? If you want to do whatever you want with your character. And, for the most part, it's what happens at the game is canon. If you want to make fiction about them, go for it. Would you allow a player to reflavor an existing race to be a different race, such as reflavoring half-orc? Yeah, definitely. Reflavoring is the simplest way to homebrew stuff. Is there a way to make Storm King's Thunder better? There probably is. I just don't know about it though. What's the best combo of classes for a 2-player campaign? I don't know. I mean, you obviously want to have some kind of a healer. I think maybe Paladin Bard could be interesting. Favorite Spider-Man story? Definitely like the whole original Black Suit arc, but I think I like Carnage. It's the whole kind of Maximum Carnage. Probably be my favorite. Okay. Level 20 Barbarian versus level 20 Monk. Level 20 Barb, I think, wins by a long shot. Though it depends on the Stunning Strike. Could maybe make it annoying for the Barbarian. Fried spaghetti. Oops. With sweet and sour sauce with pineapple. No, I have not. I will give it a shot. Glamour Bards worship David Bowie or Prince? Both? What do you think about players making copycat characters from fiction? Hey, if it makes them happy, go for it. Make all the copycats you want. What is your summarized opinion on Strixhaven? Meh. New subclasses is good. I don't really care about Magic the Gathering that much, so. Craven's Last Hunt, good story. What do you feel has been the best adventure? What do you feel have been best adventures to come out of a third-party company? Sorry. Well, I was saying it before. I think Kobold Press stuff always is highly praised. I don't know much about adventures though from third party. Trying to make a D&D campaign from a Friends with Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica. Any tips when making the world, making it a little extra? I don't know enough about Ravnica, so I'm not a good person to ask, unfortunately. Do I allow necromancers to use Create Megan or with Wish to make the army of Megan? I mean, I guess if you wanted to. I don't actually remember that spell that much. I read it when it first came out, and I haven't read it since. Yeah, I do. Gax, Luke Harp has it here, right? I think alignment is it's a layover. It's a legacy thing. I don't think it, like 5th edition, it doesn't really matter. Thoughts on the secret third book being Drow related? It's possible with all the Drizzt stuff. So it could go either way, really. Their old school snare to throw at you. Judges Guild Dark Tower has nothing to do with Stephen King series. I'm familiar with Judges Guild. Although it's pretty obscure, but some magical items or events occur because of alignment. Yes, and I think most of those magical items and things, because of alignment, are just old legacy things, unfortunately. Has any wizard ever tried Wish Simulacrum combo? I'm sure they have. Would you feel if the new book was not Dragonlance specifically, at least not yet, but a book on dragons? I'm down with book on dragons, for sure. You had a chance to look into, you're familiar with Tailspire? I know of Tailspire, I haven't looked at it, though. I'm a Necromancer Lich, judge all you want. But all the girlies say I'm pretty fly for a dead guy. Yeah, man, do your thing. Live your truth, man. Do you think that if the current political climate remains, they'll try to move more and more? I don't know. I thought they were moving away from a race with the concept of the custom lineage, but then they introduced several new races, so I don't know. I don't think the Kobold Goblin Big Bad Evil Guy is a bad idea, so I don't think so. Is there a book theme you wish would be covered in the future? Yeah, again, equipment, arms and equipment guide, magic item compendium, crafting handbook. I do think I am probably going to bring this stream to a close because I can see the sun coming out through my window over there, as it is almost 6 o'clock in the morning for me. So I'll try. I actually meant to do this live stream at like 9 p.m. my time, not at like 3 a.m. But I ended up hanging out with my wife for a while, and I was working on some other stuff over here. Yeah. They'll put out a new core trio of books when 6e comes out. I like Beholder, like Mind Brain Stealer Dragons and stuff like that. Yes, Van Richten's guy, the Bestiarian Van Richten's is coming next. From memory, I have a Dragon Flute, Dragon Dagger. Yes, I have the Dragon Dagger. I have a Power Morpher with Power Coins. How close of a connection with Power Rangers do you have? I mean, I grew up with Power Rangers, right? I remember when the Mighty Morphin first came out. I was big into it back in the day. Definitely all through most of the original characters run through Mighty Morphin. I started getting less and less interested when they started continuing to change out the Rangers. Right, you know, the big change with the big they moved the 3 out. You know, Zach, Trini, and Jason moved out, and then they had then eventually Kimberly left. That was about the extent. Like shortly after that, I kind of I fell out of the Power Ranger scene. Yes, I live in New York. Something like 5e. It's gonna be 6e, 2 to 6 years. Best dragon in my mind is a song dragon. Look it up. I don't think the book model is dragging D&D down, but I do think PDFs and books would definitely entreat people more to buying them together. Well, my friends, it has been a wonderful evening. I thank you all for the new subscribers. I thank you all for the super chats and things that have come through for tonight, for the wonderful discussion. This will be available for anybody who wants to go back and check from the beginning. It'll be available, as all of my live streams are, here on Nerd Immersion. I will be back tomorrow with some more content covering things like Van Richten's Guide and probably no news. Yeah, we are getting closer to 75,000 subscribers on YouTube. We are less than 250 subscribers away from 75,000. I think that's definitely doable. Do I think we're going to hit the 100,000 mark by my birthday on July 12th, exactly a month from today? No, I don't think it. I'd love to do so, but I don't know how I'm going to get the push to get 25,000 people to subscribe to the channel. But maybe if we're lucky, we could push it out 2 months and try to get maybe 100,000 subscribers by the time Gen Con rolls around, so we can have like a big party at Gen Con. That'd be kind of cool. But all I can do is thank you all for coming and checking out and subscribing if you haven't already. And then, hey, you know, if you feel like letting your friends know, hey, check out Nerd Immersion, trying to help drive his numbers up, that'd be cool. Anyway. Just see. Yes. So anyway. Listen, if you guys want to make 25,000 accounts and do it, I'm not going to stop you. But anyway. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you next time.